All right, Dan. Thank you for chatting with me today.
Yeah, happy to do it. Pleasure to see you, man.
Dude, I gotta say, you are like living my dream because I love motorcycling and I have this idea that one day I want to travel the world on my motorcycle, but you're actually doing it.
Yeah, I mean it's been my dream for a long time too. So, planning it out took years. Saving the money took years. I mean, I don't make a ton of money, so I've had to be really careful about how I saved it. Um, and yeah, I'm really glad to actually finally be doing it. Like we're in
Dude, how
Guatemala
many
right
how
now,
many
and I get to be
years
talking about it.
how many years was this dream? How long did it take to really ferment and like come to
Well,
fruition?
well, I bought a bike in Vietnam in 2019, right before COVID. Cheap piece of shit Honda knockoff. Do you want me to curse or no? You
Go
can.
for it.
Yeah, cheap piece of shit Honda knockoff, like 120cc semi-automatic thing, and
Uh-huh.
took it around the country, and it was so fun to do it that way, and liberating and cheaper. And so I'm like, this is the way I want to keep
I feel
traveling.
like you got to paint a picture of this because I haven't been to Vietnam
Mm.
yet, and I can't imagine learning to ride a bike in such a high pressure
Well, I didn't
environment.
learn to ride a bike there. I knew I
Oh,
rode in the
okay.
States for years before that. I
All
never would
right.
have given the idea a second thought if I didn't know how to ride
Mm,
already. But frankly, a semi-automatic motorcycle is so easy to learn on. You don't have a
hmm.
clutch. You don't have to worry about shifting through gears as much. You just click
Absolutely.
through. It's only four gears on those things too, so pretty user friendly. Um, the roads in the major cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh and Da Nang are ridiculous. I view it as like shoals of fish moving through. It's the same thing you can find in Latin America, right? You just kind
Right.
of go and follow the person in front of you because the person behind you is doing the same thing.
Yep.
And if
You
you
can't
start,
stop. You got to keep
yeah,
going.
if you start second guessing what you're doing, that's when problems happen because they
Right.
expect you just to go.
Well, that's the same in the United States, I think. Like
I,
if you think about what you're doing on the road,
yeah,
that's when things start to
I
really go
find
wrong.
there to be a lot more territorial aggression
Hmm.
amongst drivers in the US and in Europe, especially the US. Because, for instance, in Colorado, where we're from, they just legalized lane
Hmm.
filtering, right? Lane filtering at stops. So if
Oh
you're at a
yeah.
stoplight, you have two lines of cars you can cross. The only people who get pissed at me are guys in giant F-150s with American flags emblazoned on the
Really?
back. But they
The
get
road rage
mad.
types.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't find that in Asia or Latin America.
Right. That's
So
just normal. That's expected.
cars are giving you a lot more space. They're
Hmm.
expecting more motorcycle traffic. So in some ways, I find it easier to get around with a bike here than back in the US.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
I
as
mean, I
for
was always like filtering to the front of traffic, Some people would get mad or they would like take their finger and point it out the
right, you
window.
can't do that. Feels like that.
But I never really cared that much because when you're on a bike, right, you don't have a lot of water, it's hot outside, you got no AC, like your only AC is actually moving,
Right,
so you can't just sit around in traffic, especially when the light cycle in Colorado Springs, right? And it's crazy that you're from Colorado Springs because we met
right.
like 2 days ago
Yeah,
and we're literally like living like 10 miles from each other back in
yeah,
the States.
exactly. Yeah, it's
I
funny.
mean, neither one of us is going to be home for a long time, but
No, we'll be able to
yeah.
meet back up in May, right? But
Yeah.
that's about it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I expected to meet more Americans traveling around Latin
Yep.
America just due to sheer proximity, but
Yep.
because we're neighbors to these countries.
Yeah.
But
They're
but
not
still, it
far
was very
away.
cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's still very cool. And as for painting a picture of what driving around Vietnam is like, I'd say it's actually pretty similar to a lot of Guatemala. Lots of winding, small roads through jungle passes.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
lots of
what
cars and trucks.
that's what I wanted to say before we started this interview was we're here in Antigua, Guatemala.
Nice.
That's a pretty unique place.
Drinking
I don't think a
Gaia,
lot
the
of
world's best
El
beer.
Gallo. Yeah, the state beer.
Uh huh.
I wanted to get like your thoughts on Guatemala. Like how many times have you been here?
Oh, this is my first time in Guatemala.
Really?
First time in
Okay.
Central America.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know what to expect. I expected it to be a lot hotter than it is because of the time of
Yeah.
year we're in.
I mean, but how many countries did you say you went to?
I think I've been to around 40 now.
Yeah, and this is
Um,
your first time in Central America.
yeah,
These are like our little brothers,
yeah, I
This is
know it.
where you're
I know
supposed
it.
to spend your time.
I think a lot of it comes from the sort of xenophobia that we have in the states around Latin America,
Really?
where I was always told not to come here because it was dangerous,
Mm,
it's scary, and not a place to go as your first travel. And obviously,
right.
it's not really the case when you actually get on the,
Yeah.
when you touch boots, right? But
Yeah.
so I went to Europe when I was younger, traveled around Europe a lot, and that's always like a good first stop for an English speaker,
Hmm.
right? And then Asia, and Asia sort of prepared me for the chaos and the cacophony of a lot of the rest of the world. And and now
That's crazy
I'm
because I would have thought Asia and India and stuff would be more dangerous than Latin America. personally.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're all like that for places we haven't been yet.
right, exactly. You
You
just
know?
don't know what you don't
Yeah.
know, right? And what I've learned throughout the years of travel is that all people want more or less the same
Right.
things. People are decent and kind and good. And yeah, I'm a big believer in the decency of the human spirits, and that
Oh
people
yeah.
want what's best for themselves first, of course, but usually that also implies best for you too.
I mean, I do think there are some like really stupid things you can do while you're traveling that make
Of
you a
course.
target,
Yeah,
wearing your Gucci watches and your big rings.
stuff
And
like that.
like I have this necklace here. And when I was in Spain, some dude tried to snatch it off my neck.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, all right, I'm not gonna wear it the rest of the
Well,
trip.
how did that work? Well, what happened in that instance?
Oh, these two guys, they were much smaller than me, but I could tell right away that they were drunk. And in my mind, I don't really think of drunk people as a threat. Usually they're just there for like a good time or something. And one of the guys like puts his arm around my shoulder and he's like trying to get me to do this like dance they do in soccer where you kick your legs out.
Uh-uh.
But the first indication that I had that they were gonna try and pull something was the guy took his hand and he like slapped my chest really hard,
Uh-huh.
really hard.
Yeah,
And then
showing force of power.
and
Yeah.
then I'm like, no, 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 no. And I try to push him off, right? And his other buddy is like coming towards me and he's like, nah, 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 this guy's drunk. I'll show you the dance. And then the first guy gets behind me, and that's immediately like, I'm not drunk at all. Like I know exactly what's happening. I know when people get behind you, they're gonna pull something.
Yeah.
And then yep, felt the hand around my neck, and he actually yanked it off my neck. But it was like time slowed down. Like the second buddy, I just tossed him.
Right.
He went flying, and I like turned around, and in like 2 steps, I caught up with this guy. He's drunk. I mean, he's not moving very fast. He was small to begin with.
Right. Yeah. You know what? 2 steps for you was 5 for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I took 2 steps, and it was like time slowed down. I was like living in the Matrix. I was Neo for a second.
Yeah.
Because I saw my necklace in his palm, and it was just dangling out. And I just snatched it right out of the air and just yanked it right out of his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I
Well,
dropped.
what happened after that? Did you
Oh,
run? Or
they ran.
they ran?
Oh, they ran for sure. But yeah, my phone fell on the ground and it, like cracked my screen.
Uh-huh.
And it was right before I was about to do this motorcycle tour out of Germany.
Oh, cool.
And so my front camera was completely destroyed. So I couldn't take any selfies.
Shame.
And my screen was falling out of my case. And I was talking to people in Spain about getting it fixed. And yeah, there was no screen for the Pixel, or it was gonna cost way too much money. And I
Yeah.
was like, at this
I've run
rate,
into
I'm gonna
that
get a
problem
new
too.
phone, and now I'm gonna have to go home and get a new phone. And
Oh, you could have gotten one there.
yeah, I like my Pixels though.
Sure, me too.
So,
I also use a Pixel.
yeah,
Yeah. Google.
I
Yeah.
suppose I could have found one.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Or I mean, at the very least, it could have been some other phone. Like it could have been fine just getting some
Yeah.
other Android phone, porting over all of your stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. As for drunk people and not being concerned about them, that's actually one of the rules I follow. Is I don't trust drunk people.
Really?
No, I mean,
I'm
yeah,
naive.
I've run into a couple of, well, not, I haven't run into issues because of this, but there's been plenty of times where a drunk person's come up to me, like a clearly drunk person, and immediately started like not exactly chatting, more almost antagonizing me. And I
Mhm.
just immediately walk away, every time.
Yep.
I just don't even,
That's a
don't even
rule.
entertain
Never
it.
stop moving.
Yeah,
Ever.
for sure.
Always walk through.
Yeah,
Never
that,
stop.
other, I think important rules to follow, especially on a motorcycle, is don't drive at night. We were talking about the other day for a
Yeah.
variety.
I don't
of
even
reasons.
ride at night in the States.
Yeah,
Y'all
for
are
variety.
crazy. You drive like crazy people.
Yeah, yeah, drunk people on the road. Massive potholes, like tire killers you can't see.
Right.
If you're in between towns, not only the issues of potential like cartel blockades in some places, but also just you versus a donkey, a horse, or a cow is not going to work out.
Nope.
So for
No,
either,
it's
of
gonna
you.
hurt
So
big time.
yeah, I've heard of plenty of people dying because of that shit too.
Yeah, my grandfather, he hit like a turkey in northern Minnesota a couple of months ago or whatever.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he sold his bike after that.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he go down because of it?
So one thing my grandfather always says, he's ridden so many motorcycles, was always buy the biggest bike you can. That way, if you hit something, you go through it.
That is certainly a grandfather advice.
Yeah, he's like, when you hit something, you don't want to go down. So yeah,
Yeah.
he didn't go down. He had like a Goldwing or something.
Oh,
That dude
sure.
is like 1,200 pounds going down the road.
Yeah, and that turkey was
So,
nothing at that point.
yeah.
But a bigger animal,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how big you
Yeah.
are. Like something the size of the bike would have taken you down damn short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and let alone like let's say it's a dog or a cat, you're trying to avoid it. That's like another time you'll go down too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I never swerve. That's a rule of the
Yeah,
road.
I've definitely learned to just like do my engine braking and brake really hard and like
Mhm.
learn how to like pretty much have to be over my handlebars to be able
Mhm.
to be able to stop.
Mm.
And I've run into a couple of those problems just here in Guatemala with dogs because dogs look like there's plenty of stray dogs that run out into the road and people will
Yeah.
be trying to avoid them themselves and they could cause an accident with me. So yeah, I keep a lot of eye out for stray
Nice.
dogs.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you got to, man. So tell me more about this motorcycle trip though. You've been on it for how long? You're going for how long?
Yeah,
Where you're
it's
going? What's the
this
goals?
is my third month. Yeah, we're in Antigua, Guatemala. It's about south central Guatemala. I started in Colorado, Colorado Springs. Drove down through New Mexico. Stayed with this couple who are from a group called Bunka Biker on Facebook, which are
Mm.
essentially couch surfers for
Yep.
bikers. And then they were about a 15-minute drive from the border, across the border, where they gave me an alarmingly little amount of trouble. I could have just driven straight through, not gotten my temporary import permit for my vehicle, not gotten my passport stamped. And the only reason I would have found out I made a mistake is if I had stopped at a police checkpoint somewhere along the road and then them being like, "You're not supposed to be here like this." So it's really entirely on
Hmm.
um your own autonomy to get these things done for yourself around the Americas. Which I don't know. I can't speak to the same in Asia because I never crossed any borders with a
Hmm.
vehicle in Asia. Um, and then I spent about 2 months going through Mexico. Uh,
A lot of desert, man.
in the north for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we hear about Chihuahua and Sonora as being very dangerous places, and they can be for sure. But there's also a ton of beauty there, and there's a lot of altitude change because there's a continuation, like the San Juans are a continuation of the Rockies. So we went through this area, and me and this guy met this area called the Barrancas del Cobre, and most Mexicans will know it. It's the second largest canyon in the world, and it's really high altitude by
Hmm.
comparison to the rest, and it's nice and cool actually. And you get into like a more alpine forest kind of stuff. It reminded me a lot of home, actually. So yeah, that was beautiful. For some of my favorites so far of this trip, which is like 3-4 days just going through these canyons and staying in little towns and then keeping going. And yeah, I spoke nothing but Spanish for a week or two. Ended up in
I
uh
wish. See that's what's what I wanna be able to speak fluent Spanish before I start my motorcycle trip down through
yeah.
South
Well,
America.
I don't think you need
Because your
fluent
goal
Spanish.
your goal is to go all the way to Cape Horn, I think it is.
No, it's well, is it Cape Horn? Yeah, I guess it is.
Southern tip
Yeah,
of South
Ushuaia,
America.
South America,
Yeah.
Tierra del Fuego.
And you were
Yep.
telling me yesterday the plan is like January 2026.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
you're
the
gonna be
eventual.
out here for a while.
Yeah, with a good 3-4 month stop back in the U.S. after I
Yeah.
get to Panama, because you have
Hmm.
to cross you have to cross the Darien Gap in Panama,
Yep.
and the only way you
I've
can
heard
do
the
that.
Darien Gap is like crazy. Like you can't build roads there because it's so swampy. And because there's no civilization there, they just have like pockets of communities of like cartels and
Yeah,
dangerous people. There's no way across.
well,
And
it's more
it's
or less the
how big
bridge
is it?
between South and Central America, right? It's only about I think about a 60-kilometer pass. It's
That's
not
it.
huge at all,
Hmm.
and because of where it's located, it's very strategic for cartels to move drugs.
Right.
And so there's lots of little pockets of cocaine processing plants and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And not just that, but some of the most dangerous wildlife on the planet is found there
Yeah.
too. You know,
Poisonous.
yeah, malaria carrying mosquitoes, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, it is not a place you want to fuck around in.
No,
No, and
absolutely not.
not even the most adventurous people who are finding themselves in Darien.
Nope.
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 Yeah, so the joint governments of Panama, Colombia, and Ecuador all have a bit of a say in what goes on in the
Hmm.
Darien Gap, and they all agreed that they're not going to put the time, energy, and money into building the connecting point of the Pan American Highway to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of money in those countries to begin with. But
Yeah, I mean, it depends on
yeah.
who you're talking to, right? Because a lot of
Okay.
people will say Colombia is very well developed, and some people will say it's a horrible system. So
Yeah, well, I mean, just maintaining a road like that in that
yeah,
kind of
and
condition.
it's also,
Apparently,
I
it's
mean,
raining.
swampland and rainy.
It's
Yeah,
raining like 80% of the time.
right. So it's just again like
So
there's every reason you could think of why you wouldn't build in a place like
yeah,
that. It exists
you'd have
there.
to build a sky road,
Yeah,
bro, the entire
pretty
time.
much. Maybe once we have flying
Uh,
vehicles, we'll do it, but not then.
no.
So yeah, what you have to do is go from Panama, usually Panama City, and then ferry a vehicle across through one of several very popular and very
Mhm.
well-known overlanding companies that don't just do overlanding stuff. They'll also be shipping all sorts of people and vehicles and trucks and stuff across. But yeah, they also provide the ability to suspend your vehicle's visa more or
Right.
less for up to a year, which is pretty much impossible without the use of one of these local
Yeah.
communities. and they can store your vehicle for you safely at the airport. So what I'm doing is going from Panama back to the U.S. and then meeting my vehicle in Cartagena or Bogota,
Yeah,
depending
I've
on
been to
which trip.
Cartagena. It's a hot place.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm sure it is. Yeah, it's right on
yeah,
the
I
coast.
think I flew from Medellin to Cartagena, so
Mm.
I don't even know what the roads are like in
Yeah,
between.
as far as
They're
I've
probably
heard,
not much.
no, as far as I've heard, they're pretty well developed, pretty
Okay,
sealed, paved roads.
nice.
Which is I'm finding true in most areas. Guatemala's had the toughest so far, but
Right.
even still, nothing that is
Yeah.
impassable for me
That's like
yet.
one of my favorite things about Mexico is that everything is paved. And that's probably what makes everything cheaper there too. Is like you can move goods from one place to the other
Yeah,
quickly, effectively on semi trucks.
yeah, the
Guatemala, different
autopistas.
story. If
Yeah.
you want to go from like where we are in Antigua to Flores, which is where Tikal is, it's maybe like 180 miles, 200 miles or
Mhm.
something.
And you need to
And
take
it's
a
like
ferry to
it's like
cross the river.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, and it's
yeah.
like $900. I'm sorry, nine. Wait, what am I saying?
I paid five
It's 9
quetzales.
hours,
Yeah,
9
yeah,
hours on a bus.
yeah,
And they don't even really do buses here. It's all like tourist
yeah.
shuttles.
Colectivos. Yeah,
Yeah,
small guys.
colectivos.
Hmm.
Man, yeah. Guatemala is a rugged place. This was the first country I visited out of the country from the United States. I was 20 years old, so 10 years ago, 2014, and I was actually here in Antigua. And people are like, "You went to Guatemala for your first country?"
Yeah, I think I said that. Yeah,
That's kind of extreme,
yeah.
And I didn't really think so at the time because I didn't know what to expect.
Good.
But now, I've been to Peru and Colombia and Mexico plenty of times, and I kind of realized, yeah, Guatemala is a little bit more of a rugged experience. Like you have to be kind of resilient.
A lot more 2-lane roads here, and like you're saying,
Yeah,
like I saw a lot of big trucks going on these 2-lane roads up through mountain passes and causing all these traffic jams. And I'm over there with like a fast bike by comparison to these ones,
right.
like just kind of moving in between these trucks, trying to get through the line to blast through. And because of that, Google Maps will tell me that a trip will be 6.5 hours because it's assuming that I'm stuck behind these cars
Right.
and is going by the average time it takes.
Hmm.
And I get there in like 5. So I'm cutting an hour and a half of my time off just simply by crossing over these
Yeah.
big lines of cars that are just stuck behind these massive trucks. So yeah, it's definitely a problem for the Guatemalan people to be able to get from one place to another because there
Oh
isn't
yeah.
a huge road structure.
Yeah, I took the bus, the public bus from Guatemala City to Antigua here, and it was supposed to be like an hour long trip or something, but we were stopping at like every block,
Sure.
picking up people, dropping people off.
Yeah.
So it was like a 3 hour journey. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like $2.50.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I mean,
What, 15 quetzales? Yeah.
other people are paying collectivos
20.
like 40,
Mhm.
35, $30. And then some people, I was even talking to some guy from New York, and he paid for an Uber all the way out here, and it was like $60.
Oh really? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, holy crap, man! I got here for 250.
Yeah.
And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ubers in Mexico are surprisingly cheap, I found.
yeah,
Yeah, that was
oh yeah.
a lot of people would take
Uber
those
is
routes.
great, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we need more Uber in these places
Hmm.
because it helps so much with communicating where you need to go.
Yeah, that's true too. You don't have to
Yeah.
deal if you don't speak Spanish. You don't have to deal with all the rigmarole. Maybe he's bringing you to the
Yeah.
wrong place. And you don't even
Because
know.
yeah, when I was here 10 years ago and you wanted to go somewhere, you really had to like have directions
Yeah,
that you could give to them. And
pull your
it's
map quest out.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's still true if you want to take a tuk-tuk or something.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they don't have these apps. They're just in a freaking moped.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I wish there was more of the jumping on the back of mopeds here as you find in
mhm.
Asia. There's a lot more of that. I think there's a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit of it here, but I haven't really
oh
seen
yeah.
too many tourists on the back of Guatemalan bikes and stuff like that.
Hitchhiking culture is the best.
Yeah, I met a kid who, a French guy who was hitchhiking the entire world. Yeah, he hitchhiked all through the U.S. and he paid for accommodation for 2 nights out of like 4 months.
Only 2
For like
nights.
4 months in the U.S.
Ah, that takes cojones, man.
Yeah, he was a cool kid. Yeah,
Okay.
he had a huge bag. He had like he had
Mhm.
a guitar with him.
Yep. And you see, this is why I wanted to start this podcast, is because when you're traveling, you meet so many intense people that have just crazy life experience.
Yeah, I mean a
And
lot
they
of people
just
on
different
projects too.
perspectives. I think a lot of people in the States, they're worried about traveling because of money and expenses and stuff like that. But everybody has their own different way of making money and making it work. We have the remote workers, we have the gig workers. I met this guy, when I was in Guatemala last. This guy, he flew crop dusters in
Cool.
planes. And he would work for the summer. He'd make all of his money, his six figures, and then he'd travel everywhere in the world.
Yeah, a lot of tradesmen doing that
Yeah.
stuff. I'm meeting
Same
up
with
with a
fishermen.
firefighter
And
who's on
yeah.
the same route as I am. He's just a little bit behind me,
Mm,
and yeah, I mean he was a firefighter for
mm,
years, and he can pick up sort of gig work where you can like get on a fire truck and follow a helicopter and get paid like $80 an hour for
damn.
for just kind of being on the truck.
Yeah. If you love traveling, like there are ways to make it work, and it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be expensive. I think we're having different experiences
sure.
because I'm only on day 7 now.
Mhm.
And you were saying like this is like the bougiest hostel you've been in.
Oh,
Or,
by a landslide.
yeah.
Yeah.
So where have you been staying?
It depends. It really I base it around how much places cost.
Right.
But
What's your average price per night?
I try and keep it to about $10 if I can.
Yeah.
This is the most expensive at 16.
Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, 10 is kind of where I like to sit. Uh, Anything below that tends to get real rustic, which can be fine. I stayed in a homestay in Coban in central Guatemala for a couple nights. That was just like a Guatemalan family's house. But for me to get into that home was this like horrible mud road, and I slept under a tin roof, which is fine, like plenty of those. But woke up every morning to
Hmm.
dogs fighting and
Oh man,
and
that's
roosters
the
calling and
roosters. Yeah.
stuff.
Uh
Oh
huh.
yeah,
Uh huh.
all the fucking roosters.
But is that how do you? I feel like that's got to like change you as a person. Like.
I've always had this opinion that if you have a high threshold for discomfort, you'll have a lot more net value to your travels
Mm,
because you won't be as concerned about,
hmm.
a bus taking a while. Or for instance, I was crossing one island to another in the Philippines once, and the bus was 6 hours late.
Oh
And
yeah,
it just was.
just
And
casually.
yeah, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, it's late. And I'm like, how late? They're like, it'll be here soon. And
Yeah.
it wasn't. They didn't say 6 hours. They just said
Hmm.
soon, and it just kept on being soon and soon. And yeah, I just
It's because they don't know.
no, they don't.
They have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. And it's not like they. It's not
Yeah.
like they have. At the time there wasn't like Starlink and stuff like
Yeah.
that where they had all sorts of
I don't
connections.
think they have Starlink now.
You'd be surprised.
You think
Yeah,
so?
yeah, absolutely. It's it's
Okay.
it's 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 becoming more ubiquitous around
Mm.
more developing nations,
Well,
which
points
was
to
kind of the
Elon Musk.
intention in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can use Starlink to traverse the entire oceans and still have connection to the internet and stuff. And
Right.
I'm sure it's expensive to do
Hmm.
that, but you can.
But each country and each pocket of the world has their own way of telling time, and like really like if they're going to be punctual or not. Like they might say 3 o'clock, that might mean 3:10, 3:20, three
Oh
thirty
yeah.
the next day. You're never going to get that consistency, right? I think in the United States we're kind of unique in that punctuality is kind of like a value of our
Mhm.
society a little bit. Maybe it's not true in all places.
We also
uh
don't deal with the same infrastructure issues surrounding weather that a lot of
mm,
people do. For instance, this hurricane that
oh
just
yeah.
came through this last week, they closed the border in Belize. You just couldn't cross. So if
Right.
you wanted to cross and you needed, like, let's say you had a flight that you needed to make, you weren't going to make that flight. It was as
No.
simple as that. It just wasn't
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah, they'll put a kibosh on it.
Yep. And you say, but I have a flight to make, and they say, fuck,
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Well, it's interesting too because I'm from Minnesota, and snow for us is like normal. Like we're used to that
Sure.
almost like 5, 6 months a year.
Yeah, your
But
infrastructure is built around it.
in Colorado, right, we get a little bit of snow, and we're supposed to be a snowy
Uh huh.
place. Well, they closed I-25 like
Right.
last week or
Right.
2, 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, what kind of society just closes the roads for weather?
Yeah, a
Like,
lot
come
of them. A
on.
lot of them do.
Apparently, not
Yeah.
not in Minnesota. They don't.
No, I mean we are blessed to
Uh,
live in a country that and the richest nation on the planet.
yeah.
We can afford the level of infrastructure that
Mhm.
we have to actually
Oh yeah.
maintain general lives.
Right.
We keep restaurants open and shit
Mm.
like that during these kind of times too.
Yeah. But man, you're on the bike for what? When you're on riding days, how many hours do you do in a day?
I
What's your
think
routine?
I
What do
think
you wake
my
up at what time? You ride for
Yeah,
how
if
long?
I mean, because one of my strict rules is not to ride at night. If I have to do about 6 hours in the day, which is pretty much my max, I think I did about
Mm,
7 was my max so far. I'll start early, like, and by early for me, 8 a.m. is pretty early.
yeah.
So yeah, I'll get up at like 6:30, get a cup of coffee, make sure all my stuff is mind my P's and Q's, make sure I have
Right.
everything, kiss my passport, and
Kiss
then
your
oh yeah,
passport
every time. Yeah,
every time. What
yep,
do you
it
mean?
is. I
Like
mean,
so it
I'm not
doesn't leave you?
yeah, I'm not much of a yeah, right. I'm not much um of a person for tradition or for what's the right word?
Superstition, huh?
Superstition.
Yeah.
But that's my one superstition I actually follow is I will regularly pull my passport out, kiss it, put it back away,
What's the
and
purpose?
never losing it. knowing where it is at all
yeah.
times.
That's a huge stress when
Oh
you're
yeah.
traveling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You lose your passport. I don't know. You have to find an embassy.
Yeah, mine and
You have
all of
to.
my documents live in a waterproof, fireproof bag
Mhm.
that is in like a little envelope that's in my breast
Right.
pocket on my jacket. And it's only apparently barely waterproof because the other day I was driving through it and I opened it up and it was all a little soggy.
Yeah.
So my title is a little
Yeah.
bit was
I
a
just
little
got
bit
a
wet.
new passport. That thing looks incredibly waterproof.
Yeah.
You could throw it through a hurricane, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
but
It'd be fine.
I took copies of everything. I've taken pictures of everything. So if the
Yeah.
worst happened and I lost everything, I'd still be able
Yeah.
to regain the data.
I've never had to use my picture of my passport to get anywhere, thank
No, me
God.
either.
I don't know that it would work.
It I think it
I think
depends
they're
on the
gonna be
circumstance.
they're gonna
Yeah.
be
I think it's become a lot easier to get a replacement sent to you too.
mm,
But in some cases, I think in the US included, if you lose your passport, they'll give you a replacement, but you have to return to your country. Like,
right.
yeah, you have to return to your country, get a new one.
Hmm.
So it can put a huge damper on your trip.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm very cautious about that stuff because I really
No,
don't want
yeah.
that to happen.
Oh,
In
that'd be
fact,
the
after this,
worst.
I'm gonna go check my title and make sure there's no like
Damage.
bleeding of the ink and stuff like that.
Right. You can't laminate it or
See, I might actually, but
yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to, because they need to make copies
All
themselves.
those most sensitive documents you can't laminate. It's like, come on, man. How are we supposed to survive in these conditions?
I did make a copy of my driver's license
Oh
and I
yeah.
laminated that, and so that's actually the one I keep in my wallet.
Mm.
So in case I
Have you been
find
pulled over on these
pulled
on this
over,
trip?
no.
Okay.
I've been stopped at checkpoints a couple
Okay, yeah,
times,
of course.
but for the most part, checkpoints just wave me through because they're not looking for me. They're looking for the big trucks, like a Bilbo bread truck could actually be cartel run and be holding kilos of cocaine on the underside of it
Not a
and stuff like
motorcycle
that.
though.
Not likely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's much less likely at the very
Uh-huh.
least. And like a lot of these people can't be fucked anyway. A
Right.
lot of the cops are people, and they're just
Yeah.
going about their days too. And I'm just more trouble than I'm worth a lot of the time. So,
Yeah. I wonder what would even get you stopped. You know, speed?
not wearing a helmet.
Oh, helmet
Yeah,
laws.
helmet laws are definitely
Okay.
significant. Speed is never a factor.
Never.
No.
Well, that's nice.
Not using your turn signal, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
was.
all optional even in the States.
Yeah, well, I think that if a cop sees you,
I think in Minnesota they would pull
yeah, I
you
think they call
over.
that an unsafe lane maneuver
Right,
in the
right.
states. Yeah,
Mhm.
here that's just par for the
Yeah,
course.
I
That's just
believe
part
it.
of it.
I mean, it's kind of like the wild wild west here.
Yeah, to an
There's
extent.
really no road lines. There's not too many rules from what I've seen. I mean, you see so much more of the
Sure.
countryside than
I
I
don't
do.
see a lot of
I'm just
speed limit
asleep on the
signs.
bus,
Yeah,
you
don't see
know.
a lot of speed limit signs. And if I do, nobody's following
Yeah,
them anyway.
right.
It'll say like 40 kilometers max, and
Hmm.
people are going 80.
Well, honestly, in Guatemala, like the police is like just one of three different factions here, and they're not even the largest. I think they might be the smallest because you have the police, you have the private security, and then you have like the military.
Guardia Nacional, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
So it's not uncommon to just have guys on street corners with shotguns or automatic weapons, M16s, AK-47s.
Mm.
They're at pharmacies, they're at every bank, certainly. Sometimes they're at restaurants.
Oh, lots of times.
And
Yeah, fast food especially.
yeah, and
Mm.
you'll just see military vehicles, like trucks of guys in camo with obviously big guns. And I don't think I've seen like roof mounted machine guns or anything like that.
Not here. In Mexico, a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just common.
Every convoy had.
And then you have the police, and they're in like sedans.
Yeah.
And they
I've
got
seen
like
very few
little
cops, actually.
clubs. They got little clubs, and that's
Yeah.
and the average Guatemalan is like 4'8" or something.
They're small people.
So I think once they gang up on you, you'd be in trouble. But
Yeah.
those little clubs ain't got much reach.
Yeah, the disparity between the level of police presence in Mexico
Mhm.
versus Guatemala is
Oh
significant.
yeah,
I've seen very few cops here,
which is
but in Mexico it was many times every day.
yeah.
You know,
For the amount of guns and security that are here, it's weird because I talk to locals and they're like, "There's really not much crime."
yeah.
You
And I
know,
wonder if there's a connection.
I mean,
there.
there's probably a connection, you can't really rob any place when but yeah, we were talking about this yesterday. Open carrying weapons like that, makes you a target.
Sure.
And then bang, the assailant has a bigger gun.
Yeah, the assailant's not open carrying.
No, they are not.
Yeah.
So I mean, how much of it is like security theater versus like meaningful?
I'm sure a lot
You
of it is
know.
security theater.
Yeah, like sometimes I even wonder if these big shotguns are loaded.
I know. I thought that too. Yeah, whether or not they
I
actually have any
imagine.
ammo in them.
Because I mean, I think it's all posturing, right? And
But people aren't
yeah.
trying to find out.
No,
Yeah.
you're not. Yeah. But I will say, people in Guatemala very polite,
Oh yeah.
Like sometimes I'm walking on the sidewalk, people don't see me coming until the last second, and they're like, "Oh, lo siento, perdóname," or something like that.
Yeah.
and they're all very nice, and
Oh yeah,
even when I'm at restaurants and I have no idea what I'm saying or like trying to say, they'll help me through it.
yeah. I find
They're
Latin
very.
America to be maybe the some of the warmest people I've ever interacted with.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for sure,
I've
and
heard that
genuinely
because
so
you've been to
too.
India too. I've heard
Mhm.
the people in India, like I heard from a guy that every day in India is a fight.
Yeah, I can see that. I think there's a lot of like fetishization of Western culture within India too. So you get a lot of like almost celebrity treatment when you're in those places
Oh,
where
I don't
you,
mind that. I
yeah,
don't have long blonde hair.
yeah, but you are a tall white man, you know.
Okay.
So people coming up to you and take like asking to take photos with you and stuff like that is
Mm.
certainly normal.
Oh man,
Um,
I don't know about that.
oh yeah, very common, very common.
Okay.
And it's almost disrespectful to say no. So you're actually causing more
Okay.
problems if you say no. Yeah. But
Yeah.
and like there's a lot of issues around sexual assault and women's rights in
Right.
India. So a lot of women don't feel comfortable going to India for pretty
I have
reasonable
heard some
reasons.
horrible things
Yeah.
about that.
And so
Oh
that
man.
made me a point of comfort for a lot of women that I was traveling with, because if I a large white man was with them, they didn't really face any issues. But without me, it was a completely different story.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
like protection. But that's true almost everywhere, I think, and not just for women or anybody, everybody, you want to travel in groups. That way somebody's phone dies, somebody loses something, God forbid anybody like approaches or something. At least you guys are like a group,
sure,
you know.
safety in numbers exists everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my advice. See, I live by a couple of like principles to keep things safe. When it's after dark, you got to be extra alert. Never be drunk, always be respectful. Travel in groups whenever you can.
Yeah,
Stick.
keep your eyes off your phone.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm.
absolutely. So that was the thing that I kind of learned when they tried to steal my necklace in Spain. Right, was I had my phone in my hand and I was carrying this big book. It kind of like resembled a Bible or something. So one of my hands was like occupied. So put your cell phone in your pocket when you're not looking at it or using it. And if you have to walk around with a book like I do pretty much all the time, it seems, at least have it like tucked under your arm or something. Just be prepared to dump the book.
Right.
Just throw the book on the ground, protect your shit, put your back to a wall, that kind
Mhm.
of stuff.
And people
You
are
know.
clever with their scams too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I ran into a
Never
good
follow
one.
anybody to a second location.
No, I ran into a good one in Barcelona,
Uh,
which I almost got caught for, but fortunately, I was saved
oh
by a
really?
local person. So,
Oh, thank
yeah, I
God.
was sitting at an outdoor cafe in Barcelona
Hmm.
somewhere, and I had my phone on the table like I do now, just like this, off
Oh yeah.
next to the street. And this person comes up with a menu for a different restaurant and is
Right.
just kind of like babbling at me and puts the menu over my phone.
Hmm.
And they had their it was in their right hand, their left hand was free. And like as he was doing this, the server came up and shooed him away. I was like, "What was that?" He goes, "Oh, he was going to steal your phone with his left hand while he
Right.
had the menu out, and then pull the menu away and walk away."
Oh
And
yeah.
I had no idea. And I'm an experienced traveler, and yeah. I mean,
Isn't
it doesn't
Spain like
matter.
the worst place for getting robbed
I
and
think that
pickpocketed?
Barcelona specifically might be
Yeah.
considered the like pickpocket capital of the
I
world.
know.
Yeah,
I think it's got to
Rome
be.
as well is pretty significant for that.
Because I was talking about my altercation while I was in Barcelona, like right afterwards, and I met this girl at a bar, and she was talking about how her purse was stolen like 3 different times. Like she lived there,
Hmm.
and it's like coffee shop. You put it on like the corner of the chair, it gets nabbed. Don't know what
Right,
happened.
right, quickly,
It's
so
gone
quickly.
like so fast.
Yeah,
And it's like depressing almost because you lose IDs and passports and you got to start that over and they just
right.
keep doing it. They
Yeah,
keep doing it. And it's
yeah.
like she was trying to make me feel better. And I did feel a little bit better. I
Sure,
didn't
sure.
really lose anything. A cracked phone
Yeah, it was a little
screen.
Schadenfreude.
No big deal.
Yeah, when I was living in Florence, I watched a woman get her purse snapped and
Mm,
just ripped it right off her arm. It was kind of violently done,
mm.
and he just sprinted away. He was really fast, and this
Jeez.
girl's like, "That guy stole my purse," and everybody was like, "Yep."
Yeah.
That's nobody
Fuck.
chased after him. There was no good
Yeah.
Samaritan to help.
That's the thing, right? When I'm traveling, I always keep like a backup ID, backup credit card,
Yeah,
backup checking
I've got
card,
all that for
you
sure. My
know,
passport, if I'm
and you
not riding
store
my
it
bike,
separately.
is
Yeah.
in the dorm.
I have a backup cell phone too,
Yeah, I need to do that.
because you don't want to lose your only cell phone.
Yeah, this guy might become my backup because it's got a quad lock on the back of it,
Right.
which is what I use to mount onto
Uh-huh.
my bike. So it's my GPS, right?
Right.
But it's one of those things that if I'm, for instance, when I was in Mexico, I was in Mexico City and staying in Centro, and it's this massive market right there. And in order to get back to my hostel, I need to drive through that market. and it's just a small, tight street. People are walking through it, and it would have taken nothing for somebody to just come in and rip my phone off the quad. And like
Yeah.
and they would have just damaged everything on it. Like they could have gotten it, but they would have ripped the whole mount off and everything like that too. But with enough force, just take it and go. And what could I do? I'm on my bike, and they're like, they could be standing right next to me. There's not much I could do, you know?
Yeah, put your kickstand up, try and
Right.
chase him
Not
down
gonna
when
happen.
traffic is
So
moving.
yeah, what I would
Mhm.
do is like take it out, put it in my pocket,
Right.
you know, because I don't even want to face the opportunity of that. So
Yeah, so what I do is I play my navigation through my headset.
mhm.
I don't know if you do that,
Oh yeah, of course.
but that's like the best way to
Yeah,
navigate
but
on
at
a
the same
motorcycle.
time, a lot of the time you do want to be seeing your maps too.
Sometimes
And
because I
when you're
can't
in
even
these
imagine in these
tight
woods.
streets and
Yeah.
like tons of little turns, and there's a lot of really weird turns that you
You
aren't expecting
you
around
must
Latin
have
America.
developed like a crazy, like innate sense of direction.
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good with that over the
Oh
years. I mean,
yeah.
it's something I kind of grew up with. My father really prides himself on having a good sense of
Yeah.
direction, so I always wanted to
That's
share that.
incredibly important when you're on a motorcycle.
Oh yeah,
Like you need to know like cardinal directions. You need to know if you've been on this street before.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, absolutely.
I used to do a lot of running on like streets and through neighborhoods and stuff. And between like motorcycling and running and hiking, backpacking, doing what I do, yeah, that sense of direction like saves your butt.
Absolutely.
What's crazy because it's here in Antigua, I get lost. It seems like unless I'm like looking at the mountain and I know
Right.
exactly where everything is,
True of a lot of places.
I just take a right down a street, and I could have been down there before, but you know,
Yeah, a lot of places
it's
look the
really
same. You know,
yeah,
that's it. Like they just do. It's like, oh, is
yeah,
that what beautiful colored building is that? To like, it's the same thing as
uh-huh,
everywhere else. Yeah,
right, yeah. But you're having the time of your life, huh?
yeah, it's
Is this
going
like a
pretty
dream
well.
come true? Is there like a dream beyond this one? Because like,
Yeah,
holy
but no,
crap.
this is definitely like the magnum opus of travel for me. I've done so
Hmm.
much already and been blessed to do so much that I wanted to do something truly enormous, and this is truly enormous.
Oh, dude.
Um, and you know, I feel really good about it, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be truly satisfied, right?
All right.
But
How does the travel itch ever go away?
I don't think it
How many
does.
years have you been doing this
Probably
traveling?
about 10.
10 years,
Yeah,
40 countries in 10 years.
yeah,
You see, yeah, I started traveling 10 years ago right here to Guatemala, and I've only been to like 11 countries,
sure. And at a
you know,
certain point,
averaging one a year.
yeah, at a certain
But
point, I kind of stopped checking the box as
really,
it is because I was really proud of it, and you should be, right? But at
hmm
the same time, I started to kind of get my morals screwed up. Like 14 of those countries I went to in 3 months around Europe, and I can't say I know anything about what Hungary is like outside of the 4 days I
mm.
spent in Budapest,
Well,
right? But
why would you say your morals are messed up then?
because at the time, you know, I wasn't really in Hungary to learn about Hungarians. It was to say I
Oh
was
yeah,
going to Budapest. It was to say that like I
ah,
had been there, right?
you see,
Which I think is the wrong way of looking at what travel should be.
that's a big downside of traveling in hostels like this is you don't always meet the locals. You know,
No,
you have to go to local meetups. You have to put in like some effort to meet
yeah,
some
for sure. I mean,
locals.
the fact that we're speaking English and everybody around us can understand it is definitely that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
everybody
not
speaks
true in
English
every
here.
that's not true in every country though. I mean,
All
India
right.
is a good example of where Indians love to travel their own country and they do speak
Mm,
English very well. So I met tons of Indians and made so many friends with people there and like really learned about the culture through staying in hostels there. I
right.
don't think that's true in most places. In
No, I
fact,
don't
I
think
think it's
so.
really India is probably the sole example I have of
Hmm.
that.
I think at best, like you talk about, like you'll go to Mexico and you'll talk to other people who are foreigners and travelers like you about Mexico, so you'll get their experience with your experience. You don't ever get like the native
Yeah.
experience necessarily.
I have I mean because I speak Spanish, I've been able to
Hmm.
hang out with lots of Mexicans and gone to a lot of
Yeah.
places that only Mexicans go to and stuff.
Well, I mean, you're on a motorcycle, so you can't even choose where you stop sometimes. It's
Sure.
like you need gas,
Yeah, it's
you
true.
got to sleep for the night, you got to eat something. And then here you are in a place where they, you know, foreigners and travelers don't really go. See, that's why I want a motorcycle, you know, down through South America, because that is like the authentic experience. I truly believe that motorcycling is the best way to travel. Like you can fly, you can bus, you can train. Trains are pretty good. I admit
Sure.
trains are pretty good.
Yeah.
But pretty much every mode of travel is like second
I
to
think that I
motorcycling.
think that Zen of the Art of Motorcycle Travel, like in the beginning of that book, he talks about how the distinction is that if
Mm,
you're behind a window,
yep.
it's like you're watching a movie of the place.
Yeah.
And there's nothing compared to looking down and seeing that that like within a foot of your within like you know centimeters of your foot is just the road zipping past you, and you're
Right.
so much more connected. You feel like the pockets of air change every 50 feet,
Right.
and you notice biome changes between every small mountain.
Yeah. Let me run this one by you though. When I'm on a motorcycle, I can't like imagine being in a car.
Yeah.
And when I'm in a car, I can't imagine being on a motorcycle. Like going through the same roads, the same turns, like the
No, yeah,
experiences are just so different
absolutely.
that you might be able to like think of like a memory or like some idea, but you can't really put yourself like on the bike when you're in the car.
Sure.
And I don't know, I wish more people motorcycled because I think there's a lot of reasons. There's tons of reasons.
Oh yeah.
Like people would be safer in their vehicles, they'd be more observant, they'd be more aware. But I also think they'd be maybe more appreciative of the world that they live in, right? Because you smell every mile is a different smell. Like you can feel the temperature of the air change like right away. You can feel the cars around you. You know what's happening, right? You
Yeah,
have like
full 360.
yeah, you got
I
prescience.
don't like driving cars anymore because of that. Like I
Yeah.
drive my partner's car, and I'm probably a worse driver in cars now because
Mm.
I only drive a motorcycle. So
Really?
yeah,
Oh yeah, but for me, yeah, driving the car is just so simple.
yeah, the
It's like
flexibility of a
I
bike.
feel like I'm asleep half of the
Yeah,
time, like
and
car goes.
you're very aware of what other drivers are doing, and
Hmm.
you see other drivers
Oh
texting and
yeah,
driving, and
I know everything that's happening on the road. Like I can see their head moving in the little car. I know which way they're gonna go. I
yeah,
can see traffic ahead of them slowing down, so I know they're gonna merge. Like I can see things like 20 seconds in advance. I don't.
yeah.
Does that work?
Ah,
Does that translate to riding in Central America?
yeah, same thing for
Same
sure.
thing, huh?
Absolutely,
Are
absolutely.
you noticing any differences in like
Yeah, I mean,
their psychology and how they drive?
well, yeah, like we were saying before, that there isn't as much of a sense of territory as you find in a lot of Western
Like this
nations.
is my
Right.
lane, your lane.
When I'm passing trucks, they will slow down to let me in.
Mm,
And a lot of it's for their own self-preservation. If I get smacked by the car coming at me, then they're going to have to deal with that too.
oh,
So then I think that because there's so much more of a motorcycle culture, and at the very least a like two-wheeled vehicle culture, because not every
right.
bike here is a motorcycle, that they're just so much more familiar and accepting
Mm.
of other people moving through them. Because you get like I look at it like shoals of fish, right? Like they're whales and you're a small fish,
Oh yeah.
and
I
you're
just assume
passing
nobody
through
can
them.
see me. I just assume I'm invisible.
Yeah, yeah.
And like once you assume that you're invisible, and then another thing that I like to do, and maybe this isn't particularly safe, but maybe another motorcyclist could chime in on this, but I like to go faster than traffic
Oh, absolutely.
because that way I can just eliminate that variable.
Yep, exactly.
Nobody is coming up behind me because I'm going faster than everybody. And yeah, that's just one less thing to worry about. All you have to worry about is how slow they're going.
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about how fast,
Yeah, big
just
part
how
of the lane
slow.
filtering law in Colorado came from that as well. Is that
Really?
yeah, is that because there's a massive fatality rate within
Hmm.
people getting rear-ended by
Oh yeah, they
somebody
can't see
texting and
you.
driving and
They
not
can't see
noticing
you.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can just get sandwiched between cars, and
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
that happened. My uncle didn't get injured or nothing, but somebody just came up behind him and smacked him, and it's like plain as day. He's got his big old bright jacket on, big bright red motorcycle, smacked.
Yeah.
It broke up his trunk and stuff like that, and it's
Mhm.
like idiots,
Yeah.
idiots.
Yeah.
And Minnesota drivers, incredible. Some of the lowest insurance rates in the country,
Oh, that's
right?
right.
It's like
I
statistically,
didn't know that.
yeah. The Minnesota drivers, we drive like it's winter all year round.
Yeah.
Like there's ice on the
Yeah,
ground,
but I think that's why bikers tend to be better riders too. Talking about the experiential differences between cars and bikes is the reason I'm paying so much more attention to that curve is that I see much more of the road and I see where that little patch of gravel is or
Hmm.
where that pothole is,
Oh
and a
yeah,
car will just fucking barrel through that. They don't care.
yeah.
They
They
got
got
four
no
wheels
idea.
and four-wheel drive
That's
and
something I hate about riding in Colorado.
two
Actually,
sets of brakes. We don't got
we
that.
got so much dirt on the roads in
Hmm.
Colorado. So much dirt.
Yeah, the only times we've ever gone down was in Colorado,
Mm.
and
Only
from
times, huh?
pretty much from a stop, and I would be starting on gravel or on loose rock or something like
Mm.
that. And I the one time I was in Evergreen, and I spun out because I was still learning. And I put just a little bit too much preload on the engine and let the clutch off, and then the front wheel spun and the back wheel didn't, just whoop, and it was like super slow, just
Yeah,
stupid fall. And this woman behind me just didn't do anything. She just like looked at me as I struggled to get my bike
yep,
back up, and I was just kind of in her way.
yeah,
I was an inconvenience,
right.
you know.
Yeah, people can be heartless, man.
Yeah, I think that a lot of
Yeah.
people in our country don't really like bikers too.
Yeah, that's definitely we got. But you see, there are some people, right, that are on these sport bikes, and they're just like revving up their engines really loud, and they're going like
Oh
180.
yeah, like that guy
Um,
from Texas who went from the Springs to Denver in like 17
oh,
minutes.
yep, yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep. There was a video he posted online about
it's a
that,
crazy video.
and yeah, he got arrested. I think they put him in freaking prison or
I
something.
at the very least they find him significantly and make sure
Oh
that
yeah.
he can't drive in Colorado.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and that's why people don't like the bikers is because, eh,
yeah.
for one, they're not used to them,
Yeah, I think a lot of
and
bikers
two,
give the
there's
rest of us a bad name.
some of them get a really bad name. You see, I ride with Vietnam vet in his 70s, right, and he's kind of like trained me on how to get from A to B safely,
Mhm.
because he's ridden these roads like 100 times, and we can take them slow, you
Yeah, and you
know.
said you don't practice counter steering.
I definitely do.
Yeah.
You see, that's
Do you want to explain what counter steering is?
Sure. Counter steering, it's actually counter steering is counterintuitive. On a motorcycle, if you push on the right side of the handlebar, if you're on a normal pedal bicycle, that means your bike's going to go left. But if you push on the right side of the handlebar on a motorcycle, when you're going over 20 miles an hour, the bike actually moves to the right. And when that happens, you definitely want to shift your weight over to the left side of the bike. That way you have some counterbalance, and
Yeah, you maintain your center of gravity.
it makes the turn very smooth, right? Because if you're just relying on your body weight and you're shifting your body weight to one side or the other, like you could shift your body weight to the right side, and you're definitely going to lean right, and you're going to go right. But if you're in Colorado and you're dealing with twisties and you got to like control your bike, counter steering is the only way to do it.
Absolutely.
And clutch is like not your friend. The
Yeah.
clutch will kill you.
Yeah, because
Like,
it's taking all the load off the engine.
yeah, you want as much tension on your tires as you can. So that means either be pulling the brake in the corners, or it means like releasing your clutch and letting the engine slow you down as you go into corners. Right. That's definitely a rule of motorcycling, especially in Colorado, is always gear down for the turns. And I think it's funny because I rode motorcycles in Minnesota for like 3 or 4 years. And then I bought a motorcycle in Colorado, and I crashed that thing within like 3 rides.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I had no idea of like the fundamentals of riding in the mountains and
Oh,
riding
that was
in
your trip to
canyons.
Bishop Castle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it was a pain in the ass. Thank you, George, for saving me.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. So you just because you ride a lot and you have ridden a lot doesn't mean you're actually good at it.
No, for sure.
Which
You
is
can get
like
some really bad
crazy.
habits. I mean, I was still pulling the clutch in up until this trip. So,
Really?
yeah, going around turns, and I remember seeing some TikTok of a guy being like, "That's one of the things that new riders will do for far too long."
Right.
And not realize that you need to be using your engine braking
Oh,
and your
yeah.
power to get through it. And so I've gotten much better at just like letting the clutch off and then fluttering it when I bring the throttle back on, so I don't skip anything. Because sometimes when you're engine braking and you just put the clutch back, or when you just pull the throttle back, you'll get a little bit of a blip
Right.
in between, and you rather make sure that it's nice and smooth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean that's been a huge part of what I've been practicing on this trip too.
Yeah.
Is just making sure that I'm getting very good at engine braking, and of course it's necessary on some of these very steep declines.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, I did the Pikes Peak mountain right before coming out here, and I wasn't engine braking going back down, and my front brake gave out.
Oh.
And I was at the very top when there's no guardrails, and I was scared. And the reason it gave out was because I was using the front brake so hard.
Did you not drive a manual car?
Not really, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Because I drove a manual car too for a while, and engine braking definitely in a manual car I feel is like just normal.
Oh, I'm sure it's the
Super normal.
same exact premise.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. I learned from a friend when I was 17 or so, but then I never drove one again. I'm 34 now,
Right.
so. Yeah, so I think it's super important. But yeah, I think the point is you can always that's the nice
Yeah.
thing about riding bikes is that it is a skill to learn. And it's not just a hobby. Like there's like you can be good and you can be bad at riding. And one of the best compliments I've gotten was from this 65-year-old dude that I was riding through the Barrancas del Cobre in Chihuahua with. He's got this big.
So you met
BMW.
another gringo in Mexico.
Yeah, we met in a WhatsApp group, and we were crossing
Okay.
into Mexico at the same time. And we
Nice.
decided to ride together for a few days, and it was awesome. This guy was great. He's exactly who I want to be when I'm older. And
Hell yeah.
the best compliment I got was he's like, "Yeah, you're a pretty good rider." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
thank you."
Oh, dude, I got my bumps and my scratches, but now I'm a pretty solid rider. We did my uncle and I, we did a motorcycle tour starting in Germany. We went from Germany to France to Switzerland to Austria
That sounds
and
awesome.
around. It was like a 9-day journey. We did about 1,200 miles. So
This is
not
through
not
the Alps.
yes,
Yeah, cool.
yeah. So it wasn't like super long days of riding, but yeah, I could kind of tell that the other people on the tour maybe didn't ride as much as I did, and especially not in
Hmm.
like Colorado, because I was more than happy to be let loose away from the tour guides and just
Yeah.
get to where we're going.
Yeah, and
It
sometimes the most dangerous people are other riders with you. You know,
yeah.
if
Oh
you're
yeah.
riding in a group, sometimes
Oh
people do
yeah.
dumb shit, and you have to deal with that.
Experience with riding, it was pretty easy to tell like who was confident and who wasn't.
Hmm.
And when you're timid and you're worried about what's going to happen, like those are the people that I worry the most for. Because I have my music playing,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
in my zone. I ain't trying to worry about your you braking super hard because somebody's in a roundabout or something.
Yeah.
I thought the roundabouts in Europe were hilarious because they're basically like little pinholes.
Hmm.
They're like the size of your little ashtray.
Yeah. I can't say for it, to be honest. I've never outside.
No.
No, I've never actually. I think I've ever ridden in Europe. Come to think of it.
Yeah, it was an Edelweiss tour.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's about.
Oh, I
It
think
was, it was
you
some
have a
money.
little drawstring
Yep,
bag with
I
that, don't you?
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, dude. I love the drawstring bags.
Yeah, I have one too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so necessary when you're
I've got
traveling.
one called Nano Bag that's about yay big,
Mm,
and then you pull it out 20 liter
right.
drive 20 liter cinch bag that's just like a day pack
Mm,
more or less.
nice.
Yeah.
So, do you have any tips for me? I guess for when I try and do this kind of journey.
Yeah, I mean, make sure you do your border crossings properly. Make sure you get that stamp. Make sure you get your temporary import permit. You got to mind your P's and Q's because if you don't, they're going to send you right back to where you came from. So, like the whole time in Mexico, I was
Oh,
so scared that I was going to get to Guatemala and they're going to be like, you don't have the proper
right.
documentation. You need to go back to the start, which would have been 30 hours of driving to get back. And then, of course, if I wanted to keep going on the trip, I'd have to turn
I
back
would
around.
not have thought of that. I
Oh,
would
yeah.
think that you pass through and you just, smile and
And I mean, if
wave.
you don't have your documentation, you don't have your documentation. A lot of these
Oof.
countries don't have as much in the way of online record keeping, so
Right.
they rely
Yeah.
on these paper
I
trails.
was
And if you don't have
surprised.
that paper trail, then they can't prove that you
Yeah.
did things right.
Guatemala, I was surprised that they have digital forms now at the airport.
Oh,
Because last
that was not my
couple of
experience.
times, I had to fill it out by hand, but
Mm.
at the airport they just had the little
Yeah,
QR code
mine
and you
was by
fill it
hand.
out. It's so much nicer when you have the translator on your phone helping
Yeah,
you.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they need to
uh,
fumigate my bike.
right.
Yeah, whenever you're doing this trip, you need to join into some of these groups on social media, on
Hmm.
WhatsApps.
Good
Uh,
tip.
yeah, and these people like myself who will remain in these groups will help you to make it through because they've done the same thing. And unless something drastically has changed, it will be the exact same process. Yeah.
Right.
So, for instance, crossing into Guatemala, I followed the exact directions that somebody had written out who crossed maybe 3 weeks before me, and
Nice.
they were just like the east side of this building is where the aduana, the
Hmm.
customs is, and you go there, you cancel your tip, your temporary import permit, you get your passport, you get your passport, your visa canceled in Mexico. You cross the border, you get your shit fumigated, you get
What does
duplicate
fumigated
copies.
mean?
They sterilize your tires and various parts of the bike that
Oh, that's right.
might have
Yeah, you
organic
explained this
matter
yesterday.
from like I
When
had
I think
the
fumigate,
amount
I
of
think like houses and getting rid of bugs or
I mean
something.
that is what it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean the amount of dead crickets that I've gone through.
Oh.
Yeah, and stuff like that on this trip.
Good.
So like you don't want to be moving biological matter from one country to another because that can't really be controlled, right?
Right.
So the only way they can control it is to nullify it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why we were talking about you can't bring produce and stuff like that in between because you don't know if there's going to be some kind of little bug or something on that produce.
I know, and then once an invasive species takes hold,
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
I mean, we see it all over the states all the time.
Oh,
right?
man.
They're making green iguana curry
Right.
in Florida now because there's so many iguanas everywhere.
also like boa constrictors or pythons. Or something.
Yeah, a lot of that comes from pets too.
Yeah. What do you mean? Oh,
Like
pets
people will-
escaping.
people-
Yeah.
Well, or the people setting them free because they don't want to
Really?
take care of them anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, like the populations of bunny rabbits and small mammals in the Everglades has like dropped 98%.
Oh, yeah?
In like the last decade.
That makes sense.
And on the other hand, the snake population is somewhere in like the tens of millions.
Yeah, these are very delicate ecosystems, and it's up to the people of these
Yeah.
countries to be able to maintain them.
I know we're not going to talk too much about Colorado, but I will say there's this beetle in Colorado
Good
that's
old
like
beetle kill.
that is just murdering the trees.
Oh yeah, it's
and
the
you're
reason
gonna
for so many forest fires.
you're gonna see it. That's definitely true.
Oh, yeah.
And you're gonna see it when you go through Cheyenne Canyon. It's a really beautiful place
Mhm.
next to ooh, I'm forgetting the name of the road, but yeah, the
I
whole
think I've driven it.
mountainsides,
Yeah,
whole mountainsides are just dead.
yeah.
You
I'm
know,
pretty much positive I've
and
driven
there's
it.
no bird that eats it,
Right.
and it
Yeah.
takes
Again,
like a
invasive
decade
species
to
are
kill them.
invasive because there's nothing that is there to balance it
Yeah,
out.
I just wonder like what's the long term future for our ecology in these places when things are just dying like crazy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Colorado, man, that whole Cheyenne Canyon, I personally feel is going to be like washed away. Like it's
Yeah.
just going to collapse. Like the side of the mountain is going to collapse onto the road. And there's going to be no sustaining it. I don't know what we can do. Like there's a couple areas where they put up, retaining walls to try and hold up the earth, but it ain't going to work.
I
Not like the
mean,
trees did.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's whole sciences around that people go to school for to make sure that these
Mm,
things change. So I'd
right.
like to think that with people's education and with the availability of resources that we do have, that we have at least some semblance of a hold on these things eventually.
Yeah,
Eventually.
I have very little faith in administrations.
Mhm. Yeah.
At local level, at any level,
Yeah.
the world is run, by unfortunately monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all
People.
just monkey people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway,
People
keep
trying
going.
to maintain little bits of territory and stuff
Yeah,
like
keep
that. Yeah.
going with the tips. I
Yeah.
never would
Let's
have
see.
thought border crossings would have
That's a
been.
big one. Knowing how to maintain your vehicle. Knowing how
Mm.
to fix
Oh
flaps.
yeah, where'd you learn
Um,
that? Because it's like a skill that has to be
just
passed on.
by fucking things up and fixing it.
Really,
Yeah, pretty much.
dude, I fucked up so much shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Knowing your resource availability, right? Like for instance, I realized that my chain was loose the other day, so I just
Mm,
stopped at a random little
yeah.
mechanic and asked him, like, "Hey, can you tighten my chain for me?" Because I didn't have the tools on me at the time. And yeah, he did, and it was 10 quetzales, which was $1.20. So
Yeah.
yeah, understanding that it's okay to ask for help when you need it.
Oh yeah, but you can't be above asking for help when you're out in
Absolutely
the
not.
wild.
Absolutely not.
Like, because I treat this almost like mentally, you kind of have to. It's like a military deployment almost. Like
Sure.
you're away from your supply chains, you're away from your support networks.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to freaking suffer through
Yeah,
it.
and in that same vein, have enough of the tools and equipment on you that you can be as self-sustaining as possible. Like
Hmm.
I have my own tire inflator and a
Right.
battery jumper in case my battery dies in the middle of nowhere and I need to buy a new one. I can at the very least get it going enough to be able to get to that next
Right.
place.
You
Yeah,
don't want to bump start it every time.
yeah, I suppose I could, but with all of my gear on me and stuff,
Oh, it's sweaty.
trying to move it
Yeah.
it's somewhat
You remember
insurmountable.
that picture of my Boulevard
Yeah,
I showed
huge
you in
bike.
Minnesota? Yeah, the battery I have doesn't really have enough cold cranking amps.
Yeah.
So every so often, probably more frequently than I would like to admit, I gotta like roll start it.
Hmm.
And when you're in gear and it's like the Minnesota humidity and all that, oh
I've only been
Jesus.
able to roll start a bike once or twice. I had like a Yamaha.
Really?
It was a big bike, and the
Mm.
only reason I was able to do it is because
You
I.
should know how to do it. See, my buddy George, he recommends second gear.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
Second gear
yeah.
for bump
Probably because
starting.
you're already moving at the point that you would be in second gear.
I think the idea is it's like less torque on the engine or something,
Mm,
or maybe it's supposed to be more. That's what he recommends.
yeah.
So I would say try second gear. If it doesn't work, try first gear.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
do what you got to do.
Yeah. I mean, research your route a little bit ahead of time, but don't fall prey to having to follow something
Mm.
exactly. I've been to plenty of places I didn't expect
Do you ever
to.
get lost out there?
No, not yet.
No.
No,
3 months of motorcycling
no.
through God knows where.
Yeah,
No,
not
no,
quite.
no,
I
not getting
mean,
lost. This so phone service just works, huh?
well, no, that's another tip is to download offline maps.
Oh yeah.
Make sure to have a map of the general region you're going to be in, not just your route, but
So you're
like the
not like
region.
navigation. You're not using navigation. You're dead reckoning on the map.
No, no, like if you download offline maps on Google Maps,
Oh, it gives
you
you
can make points
location.
all over the place. Yeah, GPS
Okay.
is not directly related to data, so you can have
Yeah.
GPS most places that you can't have
That's
data.
good. And you
Yeah.
have a Garmin and a GPS
Well,
tracker and stuff.
I have an InReach. Again, that's another good tip is to have a plan C.
Right.
Let's say
A is the cell phone.
right.
B is locals.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and really, it's like let's say the worst were to happen, you go down in the middle of nowhere, you break your leg, um,
Yeah.
and you can't do anything. You're like nobody's coming for help. You
Mm.
should have that SOS speaker
Right.
on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Garmin has a really nice tutorial video on these InReach devices, and I remember exactly what he said about when you should use it because it's expensive. Like if you end
Right.
up using it, you're paying out of pocket and you're paying a lot. Um, but exactly what he said is don't use it unless you're not entirely sure of the outcome. If you think the outcome might turn south on you, use it.
Right. Don't even hesitate.
Yeah.
Is it like a monthly service that you pay
Yeah, I
for
pay
then?
about $8 a month for it.
Wow, it's
No,
nothing.
no, it cost me 200 for it. The new
And it connects
ones,
you. It goes like to like a global level, to a
yep,
national level, to a local level,
exactly.
and then
Yep.
they get you EMS or whatever help you need.
I mean,
Would
EMS,
you
yeah.
would is it mostly for medical emergency, or do you have like a is that AAA kind of thing?
No, I would say medical emergency only.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't give a shit about your bike. They just want to
Yeah.
make sure
Do
you
you
survive.
can you send a message, or is it just like a life
Yep, you
alert?
can send messages.
Okay, that's
But
good at
yeah,
least.
but the life alert makes the most sense. And of course, let's say I don't just break my bike, but I break my hand. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
yeah,
I have to be able to push the button, and that's all I really need to do.
you just use
It-
your nose. Just whoop.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I've made sure to keep that going. I've got location sharing on Google Maps with a couple key people,
Right.
who know where I am at all times.
Mm,
But yeah, and to be fair, when you're riding a bike around this part of the world, at the very least, you're never really that off the beaten trail. Even if you're
right.
yeah, like, I guess you could. I don't do a lot of true adventure riding, trying to go off road. My bike is heavy with all my gear and stuff. I know some people who are phenomenal at this stuff, and who are even taking my exact bike through it. But I just don't trust my own skill. And maybe that's another tip: is to be humble about your own skills.
Oh, really? Because
Yeah,
I'm like the opposite. Because I think that in pretty much all circumstances, when you're riding a motorcycle, the bike is tougher than you are.
sure.
Like your bike can handle it. The weakest element on your bike, it's not the tires or the suspension or the brakes, it's you.
It's the rider,
You are the weakest element of your
sure.
motorcycle. So the humility, yeah, sure.
But
You got to have a healthy amount of humility. Don't be reckless and stupid and crazy. So,
yeah,
but just know that if you were better, your bike can handle it.
yeah, but that's not always true. That's not always true.
Well, I mean, if you maintain your bike,
Sometimes your bike is too heavy. Sometimes you don't have the right tires.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
some
that's just my mentality, that positivity.
Yeah, I know, but like, I told you that story of me being stranded 12,000 feet. It was partially due to me, but really, like, the other part was because my bike simply couldn't handle that road, and that was because it wasn't a road. That was
Yeah.
it was an old
So what
mining
was the
trail.
solution? You needed better tires, or
Yeah, better tires was the most important thing for
yeah,
sure. But even still, it was the wrong bike to take on that trip. Like, if I could have taken a Honda Goldwing on this trip, then I probably would have taken something like that. But
but it
because I
wouldn't make it.
understand, yeah, so
Yeah,
I
it wouldn't make
understand
it.
the capacity of this bike and, like, higher suspension to deal
Right.
with all the speed bumps that are here and stuff like that, shitty roads, and if and when I hit some crazy potholes, which I totally have, the bike isn't going to break down on me immediately. Like,
Hmm.
you need to be a little prepared for that kind of stuff. So do your research,
Oh yeah.
check in with the other people who've done these things.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's what I didn't realize was out there. It's just WhatsApp groups with like
Yeah,
tons of
I didn't
riders in
either
there.
until I joined Facebook groups
Yeah.
like the Pan American Highway
Hmm.
Association, motorcycles in Mexico and Central America, and some of these groups that exist. And yeah, social media is an invaluable service.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely, man. Because it's all about your communities. You know.
Yeah, and they've been super helpful. I need to meet more people who are actually
Yeah.
doing the same trip as me because, yeah, again, safety in numbers
That's
sounds great.
Yeah, that's why I like staying at hostels, and I hate hotels. Hotels are like a cancer to the soul
Oh
almost.
yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, if you're traveling with people and you need a hotel, that's different.
right, right,
But like if you want to know where to go, where to avoid, what to check out, what to do, what's
yeah,
cheap, who's who and where's where. Hostels are where you can go and you can just sit down at a table of strangers and be like, "So, how's the day going?
right, right.
What do I need to know
Yeah, I
here?"
went to this waterfall today. What's the
Yeah.
waterfall called?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's got to be the same with like motorcyclists.
hmm,
Like that's something that it's like a whole other aspect of motorcycling is when you're off the bike and you're like talking to other motorcyclists.
yeah,
It's like you have that connection, right? You're checking out each other's bikes, you're talking about the road conditions, you're talking about where you've been, what you've owned in the past.
hmm,
There's like a community of people like, and when motorcyclists, need help, they're gonna help each other.
yeah.
It's a very gracious and full. There's a lot of love in the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, and motorcycle clubs around Latin America are a lot more welcoming than they necessarily are in the States.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Like
Okay.
I've made a lot of friends with people with patches. I'll see them on the street and be like, "Hey, let's talk for a couple minutes." I'm riding
Oh
through
yeah.
the
What kind of
Americas.
patches? What do you mean?
I mean,
Motorcycle
yeah,
patches
like
like
a vest
Harley?
with like a vest with like Las Diablas de Oaxaca. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know,
Mm.
whatever it is, whatever their club
Okay.
is called. In the States, I feel like we have a bit of a presupposition that people in clubs are not going to be as welcoming, and a lot
Mm.
of it's Harley culture.
Mm.
As like, yeah, as two people who don't ride Harleys, who
Right.
still consider ourselves bikers. Um, we can probably say with general certainty that a lot of Harley riders don't necessarily fuck with us as much because, like, you ride a motorcycle or you ride a Harley. They consider it a completely different thing.
It's a different club. You know, Milwaukee, Wisconsin is where Harley Davidson was like founded, and that's like our next door neighbors to Minnesota,
Sure.
So there's plenty of like regional pride, I think,
Yeah.
even where I am. But, Harleys are definitely, they're weren't they one of the original people that even invented motorcycles?
I don't
I think
know.
so. I thought they were.
Yeah, I
I'm
can't
sure
speak
they've
to
been
it.
around for a while. Like, there was like mechanized bicycles or like engine powered bicycles, but
Right.
Harley really like popularized it. I think, like
I can believe
the
that.
Suzukis of the world, adapted the Harley.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
they were like the
I need to
OGs,
look
and
because
there's like triple the price.
Royal Enfield is the longest continuous motorcycle brand. My bike is a Royal
Oh,
Enfield.
really?
Yeah, they started in 1904.
Okay.
So yeah, and they
Yeah.
they call it they say like Royal Enfield built like a gun, which is always the
Uh-huh.
thing because
Yeah.
yeah because
Well,
it's
Harley was one of the originals. They
yeah
were around for a long time. So I get it that there's like some Harley pride, right?
I just don't know how old Harley is. Yeah,
Yeah. But George, like I've mentioned a couple of times, he definitely rides Harleys.
yeah, your
He
Vietnam
doesn't he
vet.
doesn't judge me.
No,
He
no,
doesn't
and I don't
judge
think
me.
everybody does, but
Yeah.
I do think there's a higher
Mm.
likelihood of a Harley rider to do so. Um,
Well, hey, yeah. There's always gonna be some contention, I'm sure.
yeah,
Different people like different things.
yeah,
So
yeah. I think patience is really important too when you're riding around these areas. Like you're going to run into roadblocks, you're going to run
oh
into
yeah.
giant traffic jams. Also, just not being scared of having to do aggressive
Mm.
maneuvers, like we're talking about, like getting through traffic and stuff like that. You need to be willing to do that kind of stuff because
How do you deal with like the misery of like because the bike you can have a lot of fun. You can be in corners, it can be a nice, beautiful day, but eventually you're gonna be miserable on a bike.
sure,
That's just how it is. It's gonna rain.
oh yeah,
You're gonna be going slow. It's gonna be too hot. It's gonna be too cold.
yeah,
It's gonna be something. I
yeah.
mean, it's gonna. How do you deal
Again,
with that? Because
I mean, gear is an important
yeah,
aspect to it. Like I got plenty of waterproof stuff for rain. Knowing your limits. Like if you're at a point where you're getting frustrated riding, where you don't want to be riding
yeah,
anymore, just stop.
yeah,
Just stop, take a break, get
right.
something to eat, you know,
Oh yeah.
wait out the rain. If you can't wait out the rain, stay there that night.
I know that's something that like kind of that's like my worst scenario imagining doing what you're doing is I go to a city, it's like small, it's boring, it's not where I want to be, and then I look at the forecast and it's like a month of rain.
Yeah.
And I just know that one day I'm gonna have to suit up and I'm gonna have to go out in the rain
Yep.
and go over this mountain pass that's dirt and mud and I'll have all my gear
Yeah,
and it's just gonna
take your
be
time.
god
Go as
dang.
far as you can. And if you have to turn back around, turn back
Yeah.
around.
Like I can't besides like actual physical pain and injury, like I can't imagine a worse
Yeah, I know it
experience.
sucks. It's terrible. Yeah.
Like, oh
But
god.
you make this choice assuming this is going to
Yeah.
happen. So you have to just be prepared for when it
Mm,
does. Like
yeah.
I've fortunately not run
That's
into too much of it yet.
that's such like a traveler's mindset, I think. You just like eventually this is gonna suck.
Yeah,
It doesn't suck today,
for
but I
sure.
know I'm on this path that will eventually take me through some suck.
Yeah, like we were talking about
Oh
food
god.
poisoning yesterday. Like it's essentially an inevitability. It's going to
Yeah.
happen. So just when
Yeah.
it does, don't get mad. Just
Yeah. Weren't you saying that you could like wash your toothbrush with the tap
oh
water and
yeah,
eventually you'll expose yourself to enough
yeah. I
bacteria
mean
and immunize
that's
yourself?
the supposition. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I don't know about the science behind that one.
me
Somebody do
neither. But
some research.
I have heard plenty of people say it. So,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Word of mouth science. I
I
like
guess
that.
so. Yeah, I don't know. But as far as I know, I mean, I've been fine. And but like
Hmm.
that could be a false correlation at the same time.
Right. So how are you funding this trip? How did you manage all
Just
this?
saved a bunch of money.
Because I think people would be interested in that.
Yeah,
Is like just save the money. You work as a bartender.
hmm
Put away the cash. You live by your means.
yeah, exactly. You live
Yeah.
below your means.
Below your means.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Save a bunch of money, try and spend as little as you can. Maybe don't go to the nicest restaurants.
Yeah.
Cook for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw I have a giant bag of food, and that's like 5 days worth of food. And maybe I'm not going to eat the best thing that's here, but that's another good tip. Don't seek out the best possible thing because if you do,
Yeah.
you're either going to spend too much money or you're going to be disappointed by everything else. So
Right.
just enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. I think that's like definitely a whole mindset, like its own little philosophy.
Yeah,
You got to be happy with what you have.
yeah,
And I'm definitely that kind of guy. I the last couple of times I've been traveling over the last 10 years, I've had the money to go and do and eat whatever I wanted, wherever I wanted. So I would look up the 5-star restaurants and I would go to them and check them out. And it's like amazing. Like you're gonna go through Peru, right?
Mhm.
totally check out the food scene in
Oh
Peru.
yes, the ceviche there is phenomenal.
Oh, everything.
Yeah,
You know, there's so many amazing restaurants in Peru. Some of like the best food that I've had,
sure.
and you're gonna spend like the extra money.
Well, I won't.
Maybe you won't, but
Yeah,
I did.
yeah, yeah.
And man, it's like some great memories, right? I think food and drinking and going out on the scene, it's all part of the experience of being in the area. Like you
Oh yeah.
want to meet the locals, but you also want to eat like the locals.
Right, but eating like the
And
locals is not 5-star dining.
not all the time.
Not ever.
Not ever.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but
Bring me down to earth. I
again,
appreciate it,
don't get
Dan.
me wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying good food. I mean,
Yeah.
like good food is a reason to be alive, as far as I'm
Oh,
concerned.
heck yeah.
But you can find good food and feel just as satisfied as if you found great food.
Mm,
You know, and like I'll also probably once on this trip go to one of these like Michelin star restaurants and spend the money for that experience. But it'll be one time.
yeah.
You know what I
It's
mean?
American style pricing, by the way. Like Guatemala is not necessarily cheap. You know, you go to these places and you're definitely going to find places where other Americans have gone and driven up prices.
Yeah, and that's my point. Is that
Yeah.
like that's not local people are not going to
Yeah.
those places. That's how they drove the
I
prices
think
up.
I've been too spoiled. I think part of what I wanted to get out of this trip was like a humility and kind of like and like a more spiritual grounding. And I don't think you can really do that if you're pursuing like a life of luxury.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I think there's a lot of beauty and serenity, maybe like religious peace or whatever,
Sure.
in just living as simply and as basically as you can.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I ate eggs and refried beans for breakfast today, and I could have
Mhm.
spent, 6 times the price in that little nice restaurant over there and had maybe a better meal, but I don't care.
Maybe because I've eaten over there, and my God, they don't put enough like ketchup or mustard or mayo on anything. Everything's so dry,
Yeah,
you know.
fair enough.
And I'm a guy who loves salt, so
Yeah,
throw that salt on there.
sure,
They don't do that
sure.
either.
Yeah, and I think becoming a good cook in your own right is
Yeah.
really important too. Like
How do you
being
say salt in Spanish?
sal,
Okay, because I said that
sal.
the other day, and they looked at me like I was crazy.
You probably didn't. You probably said Saul instead of Sal.
Sal,
Sal.
sal.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
Now,
Just
I'm still learning
little
Spanish,
inflection
so
differences.
yeah. My next stop is San Pedro Lake Atitlan,
Hmm.
and it was actually a couple of days ago. I met a really cool guy named Jad, and he's interested in doing the podcast next. So
Cool.
I definitely thank you for being the first
Oh,
victim,
I'm glad to do it. Yeah, that was awesome.
the first guy to interview.
Yeah, yeah,
And you said January 2026.
yeah.
You know, you want to be in South America.
Well, I want to
I
be in the southern tip of Argentina.
Southern tip of
Yeah,
Argentina. Like, so I definitely wanna be there for when you get
yeah, that'd be
there.
awesome.
You know, I want to do like a follow-up interview,
Yeah, that'd be pretty
talk
cool.
talk
I
about
will
what
have
you've
several more
learned.
tattoos, I'm sure.
Yeah, dude, you got so many tattoos. We could
Yeah,
do a tattoo tour here.
right. Sure.
I love your approach to your tattoos as well, because you just got like random words in different
Yeah,
languages that
yeah.
all mean something to you. You know, that's all
Yeah.
special.
I mean, they mean something to me because they mean something to me, but they're meaningless. Most of them are
Yeah.
stupid ass words. I got the word potato in an Indian language. Like,
That's cool
but like I
though.
remember
And
that
then you
day.
got a really rude waiter tattooed on you, like
Right,
Dinesh,
right, right,
from
right.
India. He wouldn't give you the right food.
Yeah.
So,
The potato
uh,
story is funny too because I was telling somebody about like how I like to do that, and they're like, "Oh, here's a cool word in Telugu that you should put on you." And I saw it, and I liked the word, but I'm like, "What does it mean?" He said, "It means happiness." I'm like, "No, fuck that. That's
you
not."
looked it up, right?
Well, he told me that. Like, he told me it means happiness, and I trusted that it meant what he said it meant. And he's like, I'm like, no, I need it to be absurd and stupid. He goes, oh, how about this? And I'm like, what's that? He goes, potato. I'm like, that's good. That's perfect. So
Oh,
I
dude.
don't know, it just made me laugh in the moment. That's it. That's
Hell
all.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
dude.
I think that
I think
tattoo
I have too
stuff
much anxiety about tattoos. Like
because
I
they don't
wanted
have
whatever it to be perfect, but I think whatever you get, it'll be perfect in its own way.
right. Yeah, perfection is unattainable, right?
Oh,
Just like with
absolutely.
food or with your photos or
But
whatever.
so here's like a little philosophy of my own, right? Like perfection might be unattainable, but even if you could attain it, it might not even be worth it.
Yeah, sure.
You
You'll
know?
be dissatisfied with everything else. If you have the best meal of your life, that makes other things worse. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And even if you could achieve perfection, it's the need for perfection is somewhere in here, it's in your head, or it's in your soul, and that isn't ever going to go away. You will never achieve perfection,
No.
just
Yeah.
because even if you could get even anywhere close to it, you're still gonna look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and be like, I could have done better.
Yeah. Seek
Could
peace,
have done
not
more.
perfection. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because that was like a big part of like my job. Was trying to be the best that I could be and try to, climb to the mountaintops, But the mountaintops are all temporary. They're all moving.
Yep.
You know, it's a different thing to everybody else. You know,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, like, what do you want to define you? And whatever that is, you know, it's probably not going to be perfection.
Yeah, and sometimes
Um,
like there's too much ego involved in that too.
mhm,
Like defining yourself can be a struggle in its own right. And
right.
what's the point? Just enjoy
Yeah.
shit, then die. It's
Yeah.
fine.
You know, make a positive impact. Meet
Yeah.
some cool people. You know,
Right.
make a friends. You know, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know,
I've
I
always
think we started talking because you saw that I was reading a philosophy
Yeah,
book.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's how I love to meet people. You know,
Yeah.
they see something I'm interested in. You know, I think books. You know, people recommend books, but I also think books recommend people. You
Yeah,
know, you
sure.
see something that people are reading and you're interested in it. You know, what a great way to start a conversation.
Mhm.
You know, I would
I've
agree.
always liked Vonnegut. He's a
Mm,
very simple writer, but sometimes the best writers are,
yeah,
and he
you are what you read.
yeah,
You
sure.
know that.
And he is a funny motherfucker.
Mm.
Was and one of his best lines was something along the lines of uh humans are here to fart around.
Yeah,
And
and then we die.
I completely agree with that.
Uh-huh.
That there is no intrinsic purpose, no intrinsic value. And obviously if we talk about it on a special level, it's for the advancement of humankind. Like on a special level, we're seeking godhood, right? But on the
Right.
individual level, you're just kind of there. So yeah, if seeking out those best meals you could possibly find, if that's what gives you happiness and brings you
Yeah.
joy, then that's what you should do. Mhm.
I definitely am gonna take your advice into my mind though. You know, like if you put all that stuff through your body and that becomes your expectation, everything else becomes kind of dull.
Mhm.
And honestly, I feel that way except like almost about traveling, right? Like once I started traveling 10 years ago, you know, I would go home and I would go to work and I would deal with people and deal with life of people that haven't seen much beyond, you know, their normal scope. And that's the way I felt. Like I was eating at the five-star restaurants.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I come home and it's like, oof, we're getting Taco Bell again.
Yep.
Oh
Nothing wrong with
man.
Taco Bell either. Even though I don't like Taco Bell, but it's there's
Yeah, I mean, different strokes for different folks, but
yeah,
yeah, it's just crazy because your life, you know, you have one great experience, and then the next experience has to be greater, and the next one has to be greater,
exactly.
and then eventually you get to your point where you're motorcycling through Central South America, and then this is your new standard for
Sure.
normal. So you're never gonna go on like a riverboat tour or a cruise. You know, you're never.
Yeah, but
I
like
mean, you might.
I don't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
Like I chose this just because it sounded like a fun thing to do,
Hell
and
yeah.
it is.
No,
And
no need to overthink
there's a
it.
lot of other fun things to do in this world that are not at all related to this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need because I think that it's a major point of suffering for people
Mm,
to compare things, right? Yeah, comparison is like the death of joy.
mm.
Yeah, I think I heard somebody say something along those
That's a good one.
lines.
I think I've heard that before too.
Yeah, I don't
How
remember who
about
said that.
this? Question is occurring to me. Like, do you feel like you're sacrificing something by being out here?
A little bit. I mean, I could have bought a house by this point with all the money I've spent traveling.
Right.
Fortunately, I am in a solid, wonderful, healthy relationship with my partner, but she's back home, so I
Mm,
don't get to spend that time with her. I've sacrificed other relationships before her. Sorry, Rachel. That for the purpose of travel, I've chosen to continue being a bartender for my entire adult life because of travel, because I didn't want the golden handcuffs of
right.
losing my 401k or
Oh,
whatever
I
the
had the
hell.
golden
Yeah,
handcuffs.
yeah.
Oh man,
And
they try to pull you in.
oh yeah, and they succeed. So yeah, I've sacrificed plenty in order to do that. Like I'll probably never be wealthy, but I will be happy with my choices, and that's
Yeah,
enough for me.
I mean, one little sacrifice, right? Is I think we're going to be traveling during Christmas. You know,
Yeah,
New Year's. You know,
sure. My
big
birthday
holidays.
is tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
I'm not with my loved ones.
Uh huh.
You're great, but I'm not with the people who
I
know me
love you,
best.
buddy. You're a
Yeah,
good guy, Dan.
yeah. Thanks, man. You too. Um, but yeah, like of course there's sacrifice, but there should be sacrifice because
Mm,
it shows what's valuable to you, what's important. Like you
right.
should have to sacrifice some things for your own personal goals.
Hmm.
Yeah,
The price is heavy though. You know,
yeah.
you don't. It's crazy because like you're not at home, you're not with your loved ones, and you know eventually you have to come back, and in a way you miss so much. Like you miss a lot of time with them,
Hmm.
and in a way like things don't really change that quickly,
No,
but you change so much, right?
you move away from those
You know,
people.
a
Yeah,
man never stands in the same river twice, or the
yeah, yeah.
man is
I've
not the
always liked that
same
one.
and the river is not the same,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. And, you know, I feel like you get like reborn every couple of years, every and you collect so many new experiences. Your mind and your values kind of reset, and you'll come back to a place that you used to love and find out maybe it's not as special for you.
Yeah, you're a different person now than
Yeah,
you were then.
yeah, and that's like sad, and you have to hold on to that nostalgia and your positive memories.
Sure.
But
I don't really find it sad so much as just
really,
inevitable.
I'm a very nostalgic person, I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah, but that doesn't mean it has to be a sad memory.
Yeah.
That like recognizing that this place that you once loved is not the same place as you do now. I think it's part of
Mm.
growth. It's
Yeah.
part of being alive.
I remember when I first started traveling and I came back to my like hometown and I was looking around all the places I used to hang out and they were so much smaller.
Yeah,
That's the way it looked. It's like not that I got taller or larger. I was a grown adult, when I left. And it was just amazing that like this place should be bigger.
yeah. Your scope grew.
Yeah, like
Your idea of what the world looks like grew.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so the boundaries of your hometown look much smaller
Yeah.
because that I think hometown stuff also kind of is its own thing because it represents like your childhood, your upbringing, who you
Mhm.
were, but not necessarily who you are.
Yeah.
So depending on how you view who you were, it will also
Yeah.
dictate how you feel about your hometown.
Right. Do you ever go back to Pennsylvania and feel
Yeah,
that way?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I still go back to my favorite bar, Ripper's Pub in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Still, you can still smoke in there. I don't smoke in the States, but I do smoke in that bar. And and
Well, why do you smoke here?
because I made a deal with myself years ago that I wouldn't be a smoker in the States, but I would whenever I'm traveling. So that's it.
Okay, because you put away like what?
4.
Okay, 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't feel bad about it.
Nice. Are the cigarettes the same, different,
Um,
weaker, stronger?
I don't know. They're cigarettes.
Yeah.
They're about the same.
Yeah.
Probably. But it hasn't affected my health in any significant way. Like
Honestly, I don't think it doesn't really. Like
I think
the
like
rate of
smoke
lung
for
cancer is
once you smoke for a long enough time, you
oh yeah.
smoke a ton.
Oh yeah, like
But
the extreme case.
yeah, I do like the whole playing with willpower aspect of it too. Because I'll go home and I'll want a cigarette and just won't smoke one. It's as simple as that.
Right.
I'll be like, "Fuck, I really want to smoke," but that's it. I'm not gonna go to the store and buy a pack of cigarettes. And,
Dude, they're so expensive in the States too.
Sure
like
enough,
$15. How much did that cost?
$1.15.
$1.15? You're gonna make me start smoking, dude.
No, $1.80. Sorry.
$1.80.
Yeah, a little bit more.
You know what's expensive? Vapes.
Yeah,
Vapes here.
People love their vapes too.
Yeah,
That's why they're expensive.
They're not cheap here.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, and again, it's mostly like foreigners buying them anyway. So yeah, because they're buying them with foreign money.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think vapes are gonna take over, but there's nothing like a good old cigarette. I think if I were
an analog,
like if you would have offered me a cigarette last night after we had done a little bit of drinking, I probably might have taken it.
Really,
Yeah, but
I'm not going.
But right now, you're not going to.
No,
you don't
no,
like that. You don't.
No,
like,
you know what? That's not true. That's a bit hypocritical of me. If you want to smoke a cigarette, I'll fucking give you one. I don't care.
Yeah, but you wouldn't offer.
No, if you asked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, you don't want to tempt people,
right? Exactly.
With anything. I mean, we're all just going through our stuff. Like the very nice guy that we met yesterday at the pool there, from England. He brought over some Coronas. Nice.
Yeah.
But if he would have asked, I would have said no.
Right.
I'm trying not to drink.
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, let's go out with this Israeli girl. And I'm like, oh, why not?
Sure,
what was I going to do?
Yeah.
I'll have one beer.
I think I said
I can always have one.
Yeah.
I can always have one beer.
I had 2. It was nice. Good beers.
Oh yeah.
Solid beers.
Yeah. It was actually a very Americanized bar because we like go in and it's Antigua.
They're playing
country music.
Road.
Yeah, they're playing Country Road.
Yeah.
Take me home, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they literally were wearing the blue jeans and the flannels and the hat.
Yeah.
And of
full
course
getup.
they had the accent and all that.
Right.
So they broke the mystique a little bit.
Yeah.
But
It's almost
they
makes
were
it more
trying.
charming.
They were trying. Yeah. And wow, the views here are just great.
Yeah, gorgeous. I hiked one on yesterday.
know.
Ended up really cool.
Yeah. I took this guy. I found something on Google Maps and I was just like, I don't want to pay for the guided tour today. I just want to do something at my own pace. And we went on Google Maps and found some random trailhead that it was just a point on the map. And it was like a 50-minute walk just to get to where the hills started going up. And we started walking through this neighborhood and it's not like a shanty town exactly, but it's getting there. And the dogs are barking at us and all these people are giving us side eyes. And we asked this local lady, like, is there anything up here? Is there a trail or nothing? And she's like, no, 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 no. There's no gringos here. There's no trail. And he's like, we should go back. And I'm like, they probably don't know what they're talking about because it's on the map. And I'm gonna trust the Google Maps guy more than the locals, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I'm an idiot, but Google Maps put it there for a reason. And we found the trailhead, walked up a huge long distance, until the sign started to tell us to turn back. Yeah, thanks for just following some random stranger you met that day.
Right. At the end of the story is actually that Guatemala woman didn't know what she was talking about. And there was no real trail. Yeah, that was a logging trail that we went up.
I guess it was a logging trail.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was tons of trails back there. We could have followed an offshoot, but then you risk getting lost.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to do that anyway.
Yeah, so we just took the trail that went up and up and up. Eventually it turned into a logging camp, but there was a cornfields.
Yeah, but it's still very pretty. I mean, like I got the blood flowing a little bit. Came back here and felt nice and relaxed because of a nice workout.
You can be confident that very few tourists have
done that specific trail. I don't think very many people. Period. Do. Yeah, not a lot of people.
It seemed pretty well pathed to me.
It did. Yeah, but there wasn't a single other person up there, was there?
No garbage either.
No garbage either. That's a good indicator.
Yeah, that's an indicator. Especially like in these Central American places, I feel like they just take their whoop.
Yep.
They take their garbage. I think we saw one rapper.
Yeah.
One rapper in about like a mile and a half.
It's unfortunately the case in a lot of the developing nations in the world too, because there's not a lot of infrastructure for garbage management too.
That too. It's like a culture thing. I remember I was in Mexico, La Paz, with my buddy, and there was this old couple, right, in their 70s, or maybe they were in their 60s, and they just spent a lot of time in the sun or something. But they were old, like grandma, grandpa, abuela, abuelo. And they were drinking Tecates, of course. There's like 12 of them. They're drinking these red Tecates, and they were just dumping the cans right in the sand.
Yeah.
And they just finished one, dumping the sand. And me and my buddy looked at it, and we're just like, what the heck is going on? They cleared out, and I think we picked up the cans and threw them away for them. And, it's like, holy crap. Like, especially like older cultures, like older individuals in the culture, they might just be used to dumping stuff. I'm sure you noticed it when you were motorcycling through Mexico, but they just have lots of garbage.
Yeah, it's true.
They'll just have an area that's like a hollowed out shell of an old building, and they'll just be piling washing machines and old everything.
Yeah, I saw plenty of that. I've seen a lot of like carrion birds here too. A lot more here than in Mexico, but like there'll be hundreds of them around these dumps essentially. Yeah, they're always just seeking out pieces of rotted meat, stuff like that, and they find it. So that's why they stay there.
Yeah, it's nasty. I mean, you take trash services for granted.
Yeah, so we're talking about like the beauty of the world and the beauty of these travel things, but it's also important to see the things that are less beautiful too. I think
that's the reality, man. You don't want to miss that.
Travel, you should see the things that are not as gorgeous. Yeah. I've been to a lot of those kind of places around the world, like
do you plan on going to Cuba?
Concentration camps and stuff like that. Eventually, sure.
Yeah,
but I don't have any plans on it in the near future.
Yeah, go when it's a little nicer, but it's very stark contrast, right? The people are all very happy. People are all very nice. One of the safest places in the world. But it's very night and day of like what the government takes care of and then what the government doesn't take care of.
Sure.
And then you'll be literally walking through, there'll be a family living in like some crumbled out shell. Like there's just nothing left. It's just wiped out.
And food stability is a big problem.
Yeah. And then you'll go to the next block and it'll be like pristine, well-kept restaurants and streets and museums.
I'm sure there's a nice hotel really close to there too.
I mean, there's no like starker contrast that I've seen so far in my travels. I've only been to like 10 countries, but I know it gets worse when you go to like Dubai. And stuff like that. It probably gets a lot worse.
I can believe that for sure.
But in Cuba, that was definitely like the starkest that I've seen so far. It happens, especially in like Caribbean areas. Like the salt and the seawater get in the air and everything falls apart.
Destroy everything and corrode buildings and lots of rust. Yeah, I think it's true around just anywhere, like even including these areas.
Oh, for sure, Guatemala. But honestly, in the last 10 years, things have been kept up pretty well. Everything stayed good. Apparently, Antigua used to be the capital of the Spanish Empire here.
That does make sense.
Yeah. So huge amounts of history in the area, and people
gotta explore it a little bit more. I haven't seen too much yet.
Yeah, I found another free museum today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there wasn't as much in it, but there's so much free stuff that you can do.
Yeah, I'm interested in any kind of history museums I can find. That's fun. History and culture.
I think what they love are their ruins here because like in the 70s or something there was a big earthquake that came through and ruined a lot of buildings and churches and
Oh,
stuff.
really?
The big structures obviously fall a lot easier than the little guys,
Sure.
especially when the domes and the ceilings are meters above you.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of earthquake, it all crumbles. My first and only earthquake that I've ever been in was actually in Guatemala.
Oh,
It was in Antigua 10 years
nice.
ago. Have you
Oh,
ever been
really?
in an earthquake?
Yeah, I slept through one in Nepal.
No, well,
Yeah.
that counts.
It was not significant, but it
Yeah.
did exist.
Well, it wasn't significant here either, but it was like January 2nd, 2015 or something. It was like a couple of days after New Year's. Yeah, and the ground just started rumbling. It's a thing here,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
I've heard. I mean, if you'll see, at least in Mexico, they'll see these big green squares
Mm.
with like arrows pointing towards the
Punto
center
de
dot.
reunión.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's where you're supposed to go in the case of an earthquake, because that's the place is going to have the least likelihood of anything falling on it.
Right.
Yeah.
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 That's dangerous. But yeah, they charge money to visit the ruins. And are they worth it? I mean, 35 quetzals, you only $5.
Yeah, not even.
Maybe it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah.
I took some cool photos I can show you.
Yeah, sure.
There was one that there was like a crypt that they had open and you could just walk down and the ceiling to get into the crypt was like 4 feet or
Oh,
something.
cool.
Like even a native Guatemalan would have to duck their head. And here
Yeah.
I am, 6 feet.
Mayans were little people. Oh wait, no, this was actually Guatemalan culture stuff though, right? This wasn't Mayan. Well, same thing in a
I
lot
think
of
the
cases.
Spanish made it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's a Catholic cathedral.
Oh, well, yeah, they did.
Yeah, I don't know if Antigua is built on like Mayan
It
heritage.
does not appear to be.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be. I think Tikal was, far away from here. And that was definitely one of the biggest cities in the area.
Yeah, but El Salvador isn't very far, and there's a massive Mesoamerican culture there too. So yeah, if you take away the country borders, things look a lot closer together.
El Salvador is next for you, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear it's pretty safe.
It's the safest country on the planet now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty.
What do you think about what they did?
I mean, I think that I need to learn a little bit more before I can make a
wise choice,
well engaged decision. It does seem that the sort of hot button point most people will make is that Bukele imprisoned anybody with a tattoo.
Right.
But that's
what our London friend was telling us about.
But those tattoos,
he had face tattoos, and the police were hassling it.
Yeah, but those tattoos that he's talking about were pretty much always gang related because there wasn't like a tattoo culture there either. So there was reason for that at the same time, and I think that sometimes when a culture has reached a particular stress point, and it wasn't the case of El Salvador, that really drastic measures happen to rebalance, right? Which is where the rise of dictators come in every case. And we could probably argue that Kelly is a dictator, whether or not
he's in power still.
Oh yeah. He's supposed to only get a 5-year term, but he was voted in for a second term because the people who weren't arrested like him so much because the country is so much safer.
But honestly, like I don't know how I feel about incarceration and like the death penalty. Like I'm not going to take an official stance, but these guys with face tattoos or these ex-gang members or however they were tried, they live in a prison. They have no yard time. They have no activities or structure. They're fed through a grate.
Right.
And 50 of them will exist in a giant prison cell. And the bunk beds are like 5 levels high.
Yeah, I've seen pictures.
And there's no windows. There's no daylight. And you look at these guys, pictures of them, right? And they're pale as like a sheet. For me, that would be a sentence worse than death.
Yeah.
Like at that point, I would say, like, let's take volunteers who wants to end the existence if this is what life is going to be. Because there's no parole for them. There's no getting out. They will die there.
Right.
And I think it's supposed to be a message to like other gangs.
Oh, it definitely was.
But that's horrific. Like we don't.
Yeah, and then you got to talk about
where else do we do that on
talk
Earth?
about morality as whether or not, whether or not these people who may have murdered, let's say 100 people, but may have. Let's assume they have in this particular instance. Are those people evil, or are they the result of such things? Right.
So do any of us have free will?
Yeah,
I think that's like a solid question.
That's
like,
another good question to ask.
Many people growing up in the projects or the hood or wherever, they feel like they might have no other choice besides
and they very well might have no other choice besides joining gangs. Yeah.
And even if you zoom out away from humanity to a certain level, I mean, it's all statistics, right? Like 1 or 2 or 3 or 100 or 5% or 10% may choose a different path, but statistically,
Yeah,
90% might
they're
not.
offered a different path. You know
Right.
what I mean? Whether the choice may
Yeah.
not actually really be that
But,
involved.
free will, that's all questions for the afterlife.
Yeah.
If you
For
commit a crime now and you commit a crime, against people, even if your circumstances were harsh, you're going to be held responsible for it,
sure.
as you should be.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, then society comes.
But
So
I,
you need that.
but I definitely don't think I don't know that El Salvador should be locking up people in that manner.
Yeah, maybe that's a conversation for the January 2026 interview after I spend some
Yeah,
time there. Maybe you have
yeah.
to.
I'm definitely gonna go to El Salvador one day, and I'm gonna ask around like locals and people that live there. It's like, how do you feel about having these people live their lives in perpetual dark ages?
Mm.
Why not just like let them take the death penalty if that's
Right.
what you want? And that's what's interesting about traveling, right? Is my Western American born in 1994 culture is going to be different from all the people that I meet around the world.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
And the point of this podcast is mostly to interview other people that travel a lot so we can hear how traveling has affected them and how they make it work and what their tips are and what their thoughts are. So I won't be interviewing locals.
yeah, you probably
That's
won't
that's
be.
not really my plan.
No.
Um, I want it to be like a traveling podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if you meet
But
local people who are geared towards travel, that might be
yep,
that might be a
yep.
good one. Yeah,
hmm
but no, I
I think
understand.
I think I'll shift it up every so often, but you know, what I hope to get across with this podcast is that there's such a wide variety of people that travel. Like I've met diplomats, I've met lawyers, I've met accountants.
Oh yeah,
I've
and you probably met drug addicts and
oh yeah,
the people who are staving off homelessness and stuff like that too. Like there's a wide variety.
yeah. There's a huge variety, and you can also meet people like me that did cybersecurity for the government at certain points. You can meet all sorts of people that work now, people that work later. TikTokers and all the rest.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's just such a huge variety of people out there, and I think those stories need to be told because I think you were saying you're not going to do much social media on this trip.
yeah. I do a little, but nothing for the
Right.
intent of monetizing.
Right. Yeah.
Just
You don't have to monetize, but it's like you're gonna have a story a week, maybe like 10 stories a week.
sure, but no, those
And
aren't
are
going to
you
get
gonna
sold.
are you gonna keep a diary,
Not really.
a video
No,
log?
I'll just keep stories in my head that I think are
Yeah,
important. That's about it.
really.
Yeah, that's how
But
I've always been.
whenever I come home and I have all these stories in my head, it's like nobody really wants to hear them.
Sure.
It's just gonna be your story,
Yeah, yeah,
and you're never really gonna tell it.
yeah. That's
And
okay too.
that's okay
Yeah.
to you, because I
I'm not
always
doing this for anybody else.
really.
No.
I mean, I'm not doing it for anybody else either, but it's like this was an annoying part in this philosophy book, right? Of like, if a tree falls in a forest, nobody's there to hear it. It doesn't make a sound.
Mhm.
Very very pointless philosophical argument. That's why nobody likes philosophers. They ask stupid shit like that. But I feel that way about stories, right? Stories, I think, are meant to be shared. I think
Sure.
telling a story brings somebody else into your experience and into your life and into the way you see the world. And in a way, it makes it more real. I think it makes it more concrete, or it becomes alive in a different way.
Yeah.
Because when I tell a story, they have to imagine it. They weren't there.
Right. And that's why they're not as interested because they're not a part of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, people generally want to talk about themselves, which
Yeah.
is, it's just human nature.
Right. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it.
But
Yeah.
but that's why I want this podcast, though, right? So if people are interested in hearing stories and hearing about different walks of life, they can have a chance to experience something different.
Yeah.
And even if nobody ever listens, I'm gonna look back on this conversation fondly and us meeting.
Yeah. Me
And
too. Yeah. I'll make sure to
having
say
this
that.
opportunity, because I can totally see us motorcycling in Colorado in May. I can totally see myself in 2026 getting a motorcycle, accompanying you on the last part of your
Sure.
journey down
Yeah.
there. And we'll do an interview when
That's-
you're completed, man.
That
We can
sounds
talk
great.
about what's next, because I'm sure you'll have like a what's next.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Always.
Oh
will.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I
Yeah. Good.
appreciate you, Dan. I don't know how long we've been talking, but
Oh, like 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Yeah.
yeah.
You're gonna
What?
want to do
Is
some
that
editing.
it?
You're gonna want to
Is
do some
that it?
editing.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to keep it authentic, but
Yeah.
I appreciate all my listeners. There's more coming. I hope to do one of these once a week, I think.
That'd be cool.
I mean, sometimes you're gonna meet really interesting people really frequently, and you're gonna
Might
have
be a little
to
more often even.
more often, and then other times it's gonna be a little slower. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
you're gonna have to schedule your
Yeah.
releases. Yeah,
Yeah.
do a
Yeah.
little teaser of like of just us talking for a second, like
Uh,
more to come. Yeah, you
right.
gotta, yeah.
But hey, man, I love this like free form art. I love the meandering path that we took through all
Sure,
this,
me
and
too.
I hope that people got to know you a little bit better
Yeah,
and know more about your amazing life
yeah,
again.
and make sure to tag me in the fucking video too, so
Yeah,
my people can see it too.
yeah, dude,
Yeah,
share it up.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know that people don't get the chance to just speak organically.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was
Or
a nice experience. I was glad you asked me to do this.
oh heck yeah. And I'm already starting to realize that like you ask people to interview and like they kind of perk up in a little way.
Sure, yeah. People like talking about
Yeah,
themselves, right?
people love the attention. It's
Yeah,
just like, you tell them like, "Hey man, I think you're really cool. I think you have a great story. Do you get a chance to tell it?" Cuz I think plenty of people are going to be like, "Nah,
yeah.
I don't like being on the internet,
Right, right.
I don't like talking for long periods of time." But man, you're a natural. You
Thanks.
tell a good story,
Yeah.
dude. And that's why I love meeting, the fellow travelers cuz everybody's so personal,
A lot are
you
for
got
sure.
that social skill that I wish I had. Like I'm developing.
Pretty good at it. Yeah.
I'm more of a faker.
I
Like
mean, that's true. Yeah,
yeah, I've been developing in my own way,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
I didn't know anything like that at all. Actually, yeah.
I put on a good show.
Who doesn't?
I've been doing it. That was my whole work. That was like the work environment, You start as like a junior and you really have to just fake it till you make it.
Mhm.
And I'm sure it's similar in bartending, but when you're working
So
for like
absolutely it is.
government customer types and they look at you and they're like, "All right, young guy, you have to tell us what the cybersecurity is supposed to be like." And you point at something on the board, you just got to look confident,
Uh-huh.
and they'll shoot for it. They'll go for it. And you learn a lot. I hope one day I get to interview like another government contractor type
Oh,
or
that'd be
like a
cool.
cyber guy. That
Yeah,
way
yeah.
we can go deep. I think eventually I want to interview somebody who's big on like cryptocurrency because I love that. You were the motorcycle guy, and I will say like motorcycling is one of my like truest passions in
Yeah,
life.
yeah. Same.
I remember before I even had a bike, I would just daydream looking out the window
Mhm.
and I would be like, man, I can imagine being on a bike right now. Never ridden a bike before in my life. I'm just like, this is what I need. This is it. And yeah, I bought my first bike for like $500,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
It should
and
be a shitty bike, your first
yeah,
one.
that's
So
what I tell people all the time. People are like, I want my first bike to be a Hayabusa. I want it to be a Ninja.
relax.
I want it to be
You're gonna destroy it. Like, don't
yeah,
worry
you're
about
gonna
it.
kill yourself. You're gonna
Yeah.
destroy the bike. I mean, get something from the '80s, something that like I rode my first bike around GS 550L Suzuki for like 2 or 3 months before I realized the bike never had any oil at any point.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was a screw in the bottom that was just straight up missing.
Oh my God, so just drained completely.
It was drained completely that whole time. I never even noticed, and I had to like find a screw that like fit the hole and all that.
Yeah,
I have no
yeah.
idea if it like rattled out. Like,
Remind me, I should check my own oil. I've still got a little bit of
yeah,
oil left that I need to put in.
yeah. Do you carry extra oil too?
They gave me some in my last checkup,
Mm,
so I just have it saved up for the moment. But I don't usually
yeah,
carry anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, motorcycling is a huge passion. I have a lot of passions. So,
Yeah.
and dude, the world is something to be passionate about.
Agreed. Yeah, and if you can combine some of those
Yeah.
passions together, then you should.
That's what people love, the interaction with others. Let's see the passions. I don't care what your passion is.
Just that you have one.
This is that you have one, that you're committed to it and you don't
Yeah.
care what anybody else thinks about it. That's the essence of, like human interaction. I think like people we're instinctual creatures. Like the birds know how to fly south. Human beings, we know how to read people's emotions and their feelings. And like it's not like telepathy. It's much, much scaled down from that. But when someone is passionate about it, their energy becomes your energy,
Yeah, for sure.
and that energizes you and it refills
Depending on
your
the level of
batteries.
empathy that a person feels for
Right.
that too.
Yeah, because I was flying last week, right, to Guatemala to start this trip that I hope is going to be many years. And I remember feeling some anxiety. And I turned on a travel podcast, never turned them on before. And these guys, they're talking about their trips that they've done 20 years at a time, decades. This guy who's been to every country in the world twice, at least. And it is crazy, but you can hear the passion in their voices and you can hear how passionate they are about their life choices and the way they live their life. And
Yeah,
it's just like suddenly I didn't feel any anxiety. I was flying to New York. I was going to wait like 8 hours for this layover and I was going to fly to Guatemala City. And then just heading into it, I was apprehensive, but you listen to people who are passionate, and their energy just charges you up.
Yeah.
I haven't felt really any anxiety since. I mean, when I was in Guatemala City and it was raining like every day, and I wasn't really making as many friends as I would have liked, and there wasn't that much to do
That
in
gets lonely.
Guatemala City. I was feeling it. I was feeling it, but I knew Antigua was going to be much better.
Yeah.
So I only booked 3 nights in Guatemala City, and then I booked 7 nights in Antigua, and I was like, I know this is going to be my
That's the right
place.
move for sure.
Yeah, because last time I was here, right, 10 years ago, it was hotels, and I probably didn't know what I was missing.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm sure you didn't. Yeah, it is. It is really nice to be able to hang out with a whole bunch of people in an open space. Like these kind of hostels are developed to be like open social areas too. So there's a lot of thought that goes into them as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, did you find that TV room? Is there?
Yeah, it's apparently back that way.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll have to go check that out because we found the yoga area and then we found the library and it's dark areas like nobody's there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it has a little pool, freezing cold pool.
Very cold.
Yeah. And hammocks everywhere. They got a bar and then there's a restaurant.
Right.
Everything's super expensive, but
at
least it's there. It's accessible.
Very curated.
It's accessible.
Yeah.
I talk to people about staying in hostels, and they're always like, "Well, what if you get robbed? What if something goes wrong?"
Right. Well, Americans get scared of them, especially too.
Yeah,
we're just not as familiar. We don't have much of a culture.
If you want to try the hostel life and you want to stay in the United States, go to Miami, Florida.
Oh, there's a lot of hostels there.
Oh yeah, I think Miami has more hostels in just that city than there is in like the entire U.S.
They have a Viajero hostel in Miami as well.
Okay.
Yeah, they're my favorite hostel chain. I stayed at a bunch of.
What's it called? Viajero?
Viajero. Yeah.
Okay.
Traveling.
Okay.
I got their symbol tattooed on me to be able to get 20% discounted.
Where is it?
It's on my ass cheek.
No, it is not. You don't show your ass to every reception.
I haven't yet, but I definitely will. Yeah, I got it after there's no Viajeros in Central America.
So you carry a picture of your ass on your
phone? I'm gonna show it to him. Yeah.
Oh,
He's gonna pull down a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Miami's an expensive town, but you can stay in the hostels for like $20 a night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all, actually.
For downtown Miami, South Beach.
Nice.
Oh man, yeah.
Are they nice too?
It depends on which one you go to.
Really nice.
So I think the hostels, like the businesses close and reopen. They shuffle around a lot, but I've been to Miami like 30 times, and I like started at the bottom and I just worked my way up, and I've stayed at almost every hostel in Miami, at least as of 2 years ago.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I should check out Miami a little bit more.
Oh, dude, it's great. You got Ocean Drive, wonderful.
Yeah.
The beach is beautiful. I mean, the waves, I like big waves. Miami's tiny waves.
Do you eat a lot of food trucks in it down there?
I didn't see any food trucks.
So really?
That's
what I would assume for Cuban food.
Yeah.
Maybe just because of that one movie Chef or whatever it is.
Maybe.
Yeah, because he opened like a Cuban food truck because he's Cuban.
Oh yeah.
Great movie too.
Man, I need a whole nother podcast talking about Miami. But what really made Miami special, especially before COVID, was all the hostels had agreements together and they would rent party buses together. So every Friday, Saturday, they charge, if you wanted to go out that night, you get free drinks pretty much all night until you got to the club, right? You'd pay like $40. You could get on the party bus and it would go to the next hostel where you get a drink, and then you go to the next hostel where you get a drink.
Cool.
And around 11 p.m. or something, maybe midnight, you pull up to the club, and it would be big name clubs. I'm blanking on the.
I'm too old to go to clubs anyway, so I wouldn't.
You'd fit in. Nah, you don't have to dance. You just stand there and clubs, enjoy. I mean, they're a vibe of their own. Sure. But Miami clubs are probably some of the best in the world. So I remember there was this like, Live. That's what it was called. Live. They have a octopus essentially on the ceiling. That's just a bunch of little screens, like little pixels.
Oh, cool.
And then the octopus like flows down and
that's
up.
Pretty neat. I do like the multimedia art stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they got like all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
Music styles and that basically what I'm saying is going clubbing in Miami, if you don't stay at a hostel, is going to be like a $500 night.
I see.
Okay, but if you stay at a hostel, it's a $40 night.
Yeah, you get the a little bit.
You get the free drink at the hostel for like 2 hours. Then you get on the bus. You start your bar crawl, and you pay for your beers and that thing. But once you get to the club, you skip the line, you don't pay admission, and they just let them in.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, but COVID killed it. because everything shut down, and I think the business owners changed hands too many times. I think whoever was integrating all that went away. Um, but you know, eventually they'll come back.
Yeah, I would expect. I mean,
Yeah.
people do like to travel and they like to drink. So
Oh yeah, Miami is like a magnet for all sorts of people. I've
Yeah.
met. That's where I started meeting a lot of Colombians, was in Miami. And that's when I realized that like Colombians are just cut from a different cloth.
sure.
Like you have the mentality of like the whole world, and then the Colombians are literally on the other side. And a lot of people like hear Colombian and they think like cocaine immediately. That's not it, guys. That's not it. These guys are like hyper social.
In fact,
They're always having a good
a
time.
lot of
They're
young Colombians are really opposed to cocaine as well.
I would imagine.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
because
just like a lot of
it's wreaked havoc
generations now.
on their country too.
Yeah. There's I can totally see that. But yeah, just really, really, really great people. They just love to party, man. Sometimes that's what you need in your life.
Yeah.
You know, some people that love to party. And then I went to Colombia a couple like 2 years ago, and it was just like a whole country of them. Just loving to party. Like I've never seen people drink so much. Like it was allowed to bring like bottles of liquor into the clubs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And these little girls, like 90, 120 pounds, maybe, you know, we're taking pulls off of these like straight liquor bottles right there with the men.
Fun.
And there would just be piles of these liquor bottles in the clubs, just empty. And it's like these people are going hard, and they're completely like nocturnal in some cases, right? Like they're up late, they're going out everywhere, and everybody's chatting and having a great time. It's
cool.
like the party just don't stop. You're going through Colombia too.
Oh yeah.
Enjoy.
I will.
Enjoy
Yeah, I'm
Colombia.
excited for Colombia.
Medellin is gonna be great.
Yeah. Lots of places.
Cartagena is interesting.
Lots of natural
It's
beauty,
actually this is kind of like Cartagena in a little bit.
But like Santa Marta and Tayrona, I'm excited to go to the north. A little bit.
I didn't go to Santa Marta, so that's the other one that's on the coast, right?
Yeah.
They have a good beach.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. And there's no beach in Cartagena, so
That's fine.
it's like a walled off Spanish town.
Right.
And then Medellin is you're not gonna see like tons of tourists. It's really like that's where Pablo Escobar lived, you know. It's a very authentic Colombian city.
Yeah.
When you go to Bogota, it's probably gonna rain like a lot, and that's kind of where the more intellectual part of Colombia is, as far as I could tell. Dude, there were more bike paths in Bogota, like pedal bike paths, than I've seen in like most United States cities. Like these people love pedal biking.
Cool.
I mean, it's like, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast too, right? Because there's so many like little things about these places that are unique that people don't like necessarily talk about. There's no forum.
The world's fascinating.
Yeah, the world is fascinating. Like what people are into. You're gonna see so many motorcyclists.
Yeah, I'm
in
sure.
Colombia, they just love.
Yeah, I was expecting more of that culture.
And what's crazy is like you'll have abuela, you know, on the motorcycle. You'll have like people in like suits on a moped, and there'll be more people on these little bikes than in cars. You know, nobody's in your car, and everybody's on a motorcycle. There's like no limitations. You know,
that does sound like fun.
because in the United States, I don't know what the percentage is exactly, but I feel like it's like 80% men that ride motorcycles.
Probably like that.
Yeah, it's 50-50.
Yeah, my partner's very happy that she rides bikes because she gets to be like a girl biker. You know, it is a specific thing.
Dude, love me some girl bikers.
Yeah, me too. I love that one.
There's some goodness to it. In Colombia, it's 50-50. Young, old, male, female, doesn't even matter.
Yeah, cool.
Everybody's riding.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Peru, not many. Not many. But you know, I need to travel to all the other places too.
For sure, a
know,
lot of places.
Chile, Argentina, and all the rest. I think a year from now, like a year from today, I'll probably be in Chile and Argentina. Because like I said, in January I'm going to Africa. Don't know how long I'm gonna stay there. Probably a while.
Yeah, I'll be pretty interested too. So,
yeah, there's so much to see in Africa.
Oh yeah,
that I'll probably just stay.
Yeah, massive places.
Oh yeah, and I'll come back to the States around May for some weddings, and we'll hang out. We'll do some riding.
That sounds good. I look forward to it.
And then in June I'll probably blast off.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else. I don't know where I'll go. Maybe I'll go to Europe. My grandma wants to do some riverboat tours.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, and I think the way I'm gonna do it is I'm really just gonna follow the summertime, because even in Guatemala, you realize, you know, you're in the northern hemisphere. The sun is going down at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and that's just a mood killer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's good.
But anyway, I think it's been a good show.
I agree.
I appreciate you doing
I'm
this.
happy to do it.
Come here, give me a hug. Ah, all right.
Yeah, it was cool.
Chat later.